We'll bring the class. Just kidding. I was going to with anything with Bullock, and we have to bring class to order. Just kidding. I know I'm going to get it back tenfold, so I'm just going to say that right. So we will commence the City Council FY 2027 budget study session to order. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mayor Beck?
Here.
Vice Mayor Finn?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Bullock?
Say it.
No.
Here.
Councilmember Stokes?
Here.
Councilmember Dunn?
Here.
Councilmember Edwards?
Here.
Councilmember Crawford?
Here.
Mayor Beck, you have a quorum.
If we could ever have a fun budget session, I think this is going to be the one, right? Right? It's going to be fun. That's the way we're going to make it fun. All right. We will now turn it over to the city manager.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. We're going to spend a couple hours together running through the largest policy discussion we have each year. So we thank you for your time. We know there's a lot of reading and preparation that goes into this. And before we jump into that, I just want to take a moment and thank the staff that's behind us here. I don't even want to try to quantify the number of hours and discussions and just challenges that is to put this together, but it's with a lot of energy and effort that the staff have prepared a budget that we believe clearly advances your priorities, that is fiscally sound, practices good stewardship, and we'll get into all that. But I just can't say enough about the level of energy and effort that's done by the staff to prepare this and the level of professionalism that goes in behind it. Just the agenda for the day, we're going to try to move at a pretty good clip because we got a fair amount of information to get through. Sean and I are going to kick this thing off with an introduction, a budget overview. We're going to kind of tease the second stage because then we'll get into the program summary. Peter, Chris Hallett, Kevin will jump up, talk about administrative development operations, and then the public safety team will come on. Travis will come up with the chiefs, Judge Tats to talk about public safety. Then we'll probably take a quick break. Maybe take us 2 hours to get to that point, depending on the amount of questions. We'll take a good break. We'll come back up, talk about the Peoria Innovation Corps business plan. This is a new one we haven't had before, but it's a good practice based on the investment that the council has coached us towards and staff are implementing, and it's a requirement of our contract with the state. We'll get into capital improvement program. And then from the capital improvement program, we'll do a quick summary. We'll wrap up and get on with the day. So as always, Kevin's put up in the front an adds deletes. So we'll be doing some puts and takes. You'll notice that there's already some numbers up on the board on the adds and subtracts. And I believe you've been given a copy. There's already some corrections that we found and some additions and subtractions that we need to reconcile. The team's overall strategy was that instead of trying to slip sheets into things you were already reviewing, they just said, time out, let's collect them, let's understand what the puts and takes are from this discussion, and then we'll pull them all together. Whatever that final reconciliation is, we'll get you that summary back ahead of the 5-5 preliminary budget that we'll come to. So, all right, with that, we're going to jump in. A lot of this information might seem the same if you read the first 8 pages of the 1,500-page binder you were given. But to keep us all square, we'll talk about a handful of things. So on the spending side of things, you'll notice a flat budget year over year. The team worked very, very hard to keep this budget flat, and there's a couple of things that go into it and just a few nuances we want to point out. So it is a modest 0.5% reduction year over year, and it still achieves council's priorities of economic development, public safety, water security, as well as supports some of the inflationary expenses we see. So on the operating side, there was a 3% increase, and we'll get into the components of that. Wages are there, but we did a really good job of keeping the commodities and the contractuals under control, but there is a 3% increase on the operating side. You'll see capital is up 1%, but there's two stories inside of that I think they're important, and we'll touch on each of them throughout the day. The first of which is, I'll call it an operational policy change that we've made. So a lot of our CIP programs it fits into one of two buckets. It's a discrete project or it's a program that we use to advance priorities. Well, one of the things that was happening year over year was we were rolling over sizable amounts of dollars because we wouldn't spend them. So the team made a collective decision this year to said, look, If you haven't spent it, it's done, and you'll pick up new money in the new fiscal year, but we're going to sweep those funds back, put them in the general fund for future use as one-time dollars. And that ultimately was a $40 million reduction to the line. We'll talk a little later about a possibility of a water acquisition for water resources. That's a $90 million project. That's inside of this capital plan. So if you take out that 90 million, essentially we would have been down $50 million year over year on that number, right? With the $40 million take. The one thing I will highlight you to as a last point on the spending slide is there's a change in contingency, because some folks would say, hey, your budget's only flat because your contingency line item dropped year over year. It's a true statement. The difference is that FY26 contingency was intentionally inflated. So we had some conversations in the FY26 budget cycle because we knew we were buying property in the PIC. We knew we had a lot of capital projects. We put in extra cushion, and in essence, FY25 was $52.5 million. FY26 contingency was $88 million. You're back down to $55 million this year. So where some would say you're only flat because of that change, actually it's a return to the norm. And so we're just happen to be at the peak season of capital spend. We'll get into that throughout the day. So we expect to see that capital come down because we're at a heavy rate of spend on capital projects. So that's kind of the big theme for the day is we worked hard to keep the spending flat. One of the reasons we worked hard to keep the spending flat is because we're seeing impacts on the revenue side. So this is a stack of a lion's share of our revenues, and there's four contributing. There's local sales tax, and then there's the components of the state shared dynamics. And so there's state shared transaction privilege tax, there's state share urban revenue share, and then there's a state share of vehicle licensing. And so in that, we've seen reductions on a couple of fronts. Mainly it's in the urban revenue share. The team took a very conservative approach a couple years ago with a flat tax came in and essentially said, hey, we saw some one-time spikes. We need to be cognizant not to plan around the peak. We need to plan around the stabilization. So that's one. But we've also seen some interesting dynamics with Santan Valley coming in. They're now taking a cut of the urban revenue share. That has an impact on us of $2 million or so. We've also felt this year the full tilt of the removal of the rental tax. We fully see that in the forecast now and the pain that caused. But the conservative budgeting approach that the team has taken of a 2.5% year over year compounded growth rate, that conservative approach pays big dividends, right? You stay conservative on that revenue line, right? You get aggressive on your money spend, and then we stay in a pretty healthy situation. There are two specific items that I want to highlight for you, though, and these are really important because they have not come to fruition yet, but they very well could, and they can have a negative impact on the revenue line both today and tomorrow. The first one, you'll hear us refer to it as the moratorium on fees. So this is a piece of legislation that's being run to counteract what cities are doing to balance their own revenue streams. This council has said very clearly, and we've heard, having a blended revenue stream, multiple revenue streams is a wise thing, right? We believe it, you believe it. And fees is part of that, especially user fees. But there's a particular group who ran a bill, and ultimately what it said was, off of your FY26 fees, you cannot raise those fees for 4 years through 2030. Well, that has a negative implication, right? Because essentially we've got some pretty sound strategies on how we manage our user fees, our general fund user fees, our development fees, and a large part of that is water and wastewater and solid waste rates. This would freeze those. Now, that might have a short-term positive impact on the citizen's wallet, but anytime you artificially cap fees, you end up with a really severe correction on the other side. Well, that bill did not advance through its regular committee. So they did a strike everything and attached it to a House resolution. It's House Resolution 2016, trying to take it to the voters. And so it is possible that this thing is still alive and still causes issues. So that is a flag that we're putting on the table just to say we have revenue projections. They have a series of assumptions that go into them, but this bill, this House resolution, may have a negative impact on that we'd have to reconcile. You should go as we go. You should turn on your mic.
There you go. Thank you. So in some ways, I can understand why they would do that with some of the fees that we've seen increase in some of the cities. But with a city like ours having a diverse revenue model and having all these different components, so one cost isn't the only thing that happens. You look at our sales tax. Our sales tax hasn't increased in what, 17 years or something like that, 18 years, 20 years. So it's even better. So you look at all those things. Why do you see, just so everybody understands, I know they're live streaming this as well, so it's important, I think, for citizens to see this as well. What do you see the difference in the Peoria model, which is what we've called it for a long time, right? The Peoria financial model, compared to other cities? Are they just not planning ahead of time, or are they trying to grow too fast? I mean, what is it that they're having to increase those fees? It sounds like it's more of a planning situation, and then we're being caught up in it because the legislature's trying to catch everybody in the same mix.
Yeah, thank you for that, Mayor. You're right. I think part of it is the example jurisdictions that they've used maybe bet too heavy on the uptick on the urban revenue share early and caught themselves, and we've seen that with other jurisdictions raising their sales tax to offset it. So that's been part of it. A lot of it's planning. I mean, let's be very fair. We're a conservative city. We're both in our costing approach as well as our revenue projections, and so that has paid dividends for us. We are mindful of that. I think the team has done an exceptional job with that. So I think this is a broad stroke to a very complicated problem, and we're swept up inside of that, and that's the disappointing thing. Not all jurisdictions are run the same. I think what we do here is exceptionally sound. But you have a group of legislators, and for the right reasons, they're trying to positively impact the regular everyday citizen, which is an admirable thing. But you got to be very mindful, because when a higher level of government takes a broad stroke approach, it very often has a negative consequence on jurisdictions like ours. And so we've got some strategies around it, but it's just something that everybody needs to know because it could have an implication. The second thing that I put on your radar too is the conformity between federal and state tax. So there's an ongoing dispute between the majority and the state legislature and the governor in terms of how do they reconcile the federal big beautiful bill and the tax pass through that brings. So depending on which approach you take, right, if you were to take the one that the governor is trying to adapt versus the one that the tax pass through that the majority in the legislature it could have a $1 to $2.5 million impact on our revenue stream, right? And it's just taxes as they flow through. And I get it. You bring the tax base down, they're expecting it to spend through. People will spend that through. You'll pick it up in a different way. But those things don't happen overnight. They just do not happen overnight. And so we're keeping a very sharp eye on these, because although we've been mindful and our budget is flat year over year, right? You could see from the bar chart, the revenue line is down. We need to be super mindful. So that's the key theme for today. And we're putting a pin in it to possibly come back and just let you know there's an implication. The good thing is we've got good sound financial reserves. We got good sound financial policies. So in the short term, we can weather it, but we got to be mindful and watch it. Okay. I'm going to highlight a handful of things. The team is going to get into painstaking detail on all of this. Again, Sean and I are just here to kind of kick this off. The team is going to get into all the detail you could imagine. But I think the key message with this slide is you're going to hear about projects that finish what we started. We've had a lot of big successes in the last couple of years, and we saw even some of those last night at council. So you're going to hear more about water security through the CAP LPP Wellfield. You're going to hear about finishing Reclaim Project 2. You're going to hear about economic development projects of finishing the Jefferson House and finishing PIC 2 infrastructure. Public safety, we're going to touch on the fire station that's starting construction and the grading is almost done, right? That's fantastic progress. You're going to hear about proactive government projects like 67th Avenue drainage and roadway improvements, and the fleet building that we're going to cut the ribbon on in May. You're going to hear about council chamber renovations that you guys get to celebrate on the 21st of April. And then entry plaza improvements that you'll pass to get to that new one. So it's been really about finishing what we started. But today you're also going to hear about achieving more than what we've already had going. Like for us, it seems like even big things aren't big enough, and we like to keep it rolling. So you're going to hear about expansion to the Pinnacle Peak Patrol expansion. You're going to hear about an infill fire station. You're going to hear about a possible water resource acquisition, right? We've been acquiring water and growing our water portfolio over the last 35 or 40 years. There's an opportunity that's opened itself up. Kevin's going to walk us through it and talk about that clearly. You're going to hear about expansion to our water reclamation facilities, right? Water and wastewater are some of the most expensive things, and if cities are not planning for them early and executing them well, they bite jurisdictions really bad with increased fees and challenges, and we see that across the valley, so we need to stay out in front of that. The team is also going to spend some time talking to you about Pick 1, Pick 2 development, because it's a large part of our play. It's over there. Okay. The other thing, and I'll highlight this here, we'll get into more of it later. One of the big challenges we have every single year is compensation. It is our goal, our desire to be a premier employer within the city. And this is a constant battle of how do we balance the revenue and the cost side. So there's a summary here of what will flow through. We'll be communicating this with the broader staff in the next 24 hours. But the strategy that we had through negotiations, wage reopeners with the labor groups are shown here with a mix of COLAs and merit percentages. The non-rep, we took a strategy around 2.5% COLA and 2.5% merit. You'll see it has a net impact on the overall operating of $6 million, and that says a net impact. The reason why it's not the full gross, it's actually about $10 million of gross. But as you know, we've been doing some recovery and makeup on the PRS funding balances. And as such, we're getting closer to that 2030 requirement of being whole. So we've been able to back down some of those one-time contributions. So we're able to back that out, offset the $10 million by pulling $4 million out of that. So the net impact to the operating is $6 million. Probably the toughest pill to swallow for us in the budget cycle this year was we always have to true up the trust and ultimately what the healthcare insurance premiums are going to be. The team has done an exceptional job over the last couple of years of mitigating that, but this year it caught up to us. And so there is an increase. Yes, that number says 10%, and that is, city and employees. So we each take a hit. But one of the things you're going to hear today, and Peter will touch on it, he's going to highlight a big initiative that we have going on to open up our own health clinic, specifically to give an option to not only staff, but to their families. And the location was specifically geographically chosen to pick where the majority of our staff live. So we can try to get families going in because we can cut costs. And it won't work through like a copay. We are going to pay for those services. So the more services we can get into that clinic, then the less pressure we can put onto our health plan. So it is disappointing. It is been a real struggle for us to figure this one out. The team's done an excellent job over the last couple of years, and I think it just caught up to us. But as an offset to that, we're trying to open up a net new service to bring those costs down. My last slide in the intro, and I'll give it over to Sean to do a quick overview of the budget, is headcount. One of the things we always try to do is prioritize and manage the headcount to be exactly what we need, but keep in line with council priorities. And you'll see here 31 total headcount adds to the workforce, bringing us up to 1,500 in a quarter. I'd like to meet the quarter of a person. But police, there's 4 people. We'll get into those details. I think the chief has got a pretty sound strategy of how he's adding people to augment the sworn workforce. Fire and medical at 16, which includes 15 for a Rover Pool addition. And then you've got municipal court, because as we do activities on the law enforcement side, it flows through the courts. And so you see us moving some one-time solutions to ongoing. Water services needed some uptick, and then there's a couple other positions in there. But the position adds are strategically within the context of the council priorities of public safety, water security, economic development, and then innovative government. With that, I'll hand it over to our CFO, Sean, to walk us through an overview.
Okay, thank you, Mike, Mayor, Council. Just going to walk through at a very high level, kind of a budget overview and a little bit of timeline on where we're at. So this first slide, just want to highlight where we're at in the budget process. So we have spent the last several months putting together this proposed budget for you. It's involved forecasting our available resources, looking at spending patterns, where we're at with spending stuff, and then speaking with you and getting your priorities and your policies. We think that we put together a budget that meets all of our goals for it. But tonight's session is for you to tell us if we've hit the bullseye on this or if we need to make some adjustments to it. This is your chance to do that. After tonight, we have about a month to put together the tentative budget, and then things start to happen very fast. So we'll have the tentative budget in front of you on May 5th. 2 weeks later, we'll come to you asking for approval of the final budget. And then 2 weeks after that, we'll do the property tax levy, and that will close out the budget cycle for this year and get us ready for fiscal year 27. So a quick summary of our budget. First of all, this is a balanced budget, but I think even more importantly than that, this is a sustainable budget. And I'll talk a little bit about the difference between those two things when we get to a later slide. It does have a slight decrease over the prior year. We tried to keep the budget flat, and we've accomplished that. This budget includes no increases to tax rates. So the sales tax rate, the property tax rate are staying exactly the same as they have been for a number of years now. No increases there at all. It does include, we are planning for a 5.1% utility rate increase on July 1st, 2026. That was approved last year by the council. So that's built into the budget that we have that. We believe that this budget does a good job of advancing council priorities and bringing in the strategic resources that we need for that. And then finally, this is consistent with our principles of sound financial management. These are principles that were approved by the council that govern how we manage our finances within the city. So I just want to touch a little bit on what those principles are, particularly the ones that impact the budget the most. So the first one is avoid using one-time revenues for ongoing operations. This is where I get to a balanced budget versus sustainable budget. You can balance a budget by saying, I'm going to pay, all of my everything off with one-time monies. The problem is next year I still have those ongoing costs and the one-time monies are gone. So a sustainable budget matches ongoing expenditures with ongoing revenues. We do a very good job and have for years done a good job of being very conservative in those estimates. That's helped us get through downturns. It's helped us get through loss of revenue like the residential rental because we're able to absorb that a little bit by managing those ongoing revenues. The next thing, 5-year forecast for major funds. We're always looking out 5 years on our major funds. So we're not just looking at what's going to happen next year. We're trying to forecast and predict what's coming down the road. What are the decisions that we make today? What's that impact 5 years down the road? And is that sustainable? So we always want to be looking out beyond just the 1 year period. A financially balanced capital program. This is very important in that we have to have funding available for the major projects that we are anticipating. So we're always looking at, will we have financing available? Will we have the resources available before we undertake these projects? Last thing you want to do is get halfway through a project and then say, okay, we didn't have the money for it. So we want to make sure that we're there. So our 10-year plan includes funding for all of those projects. The next, we maintain strong reserves. So one of the things that we have done as a city is we have set high reserves as a policy. These reserves are set aside to cover unexpected circumstances, whether it's a natural disaster, whether it's a sudden loss of revenues due to the economy, whatever it is, we have reserves that we can tap into in the short term to bridge those and give us a chance to proactively look at those emergency situations instead of just having to react in an instant with it. And then finally, we have responsible debt management. Debt is a very important tool that we have, particularly for financing our long-term capital projects, but it has to be used responsibly. We don't want to be over leveraged. We want to make sure that we keep our coverage ratios so that we are comfortable in the payback on that. Our success in debt management comes in light of we are AAA rated by 2 of the 3 major rating bond agencies. So we're very proud of that, and it's an important part of our policy. Okay, let's talk about the budget itself. This year's budget, $1.185 billion. That is a slight decrease. Last year was 1.192. So we came down a very small amount, but we did come down. The pieces of that capital budget still makes up the biggest piece of it at almost 50%, $580 million. I'll talk a little bit more about that. We have debt service went up just a little bit as we issued some bonds this past year. And then operating, $493 million of operating. That's a little bit of an increase, about 3% increase. Over half of that is paying for people. So $251 million of that 493 is tied up in personnel costs that we have. So we are a people operation. Supplemental requests this year. So we had a total of $28 million in supplemental requests, $8 million of new ongoing requests, $20 million of one-time. That is $10 million less than the supplementals that we had last year. And if you look at it, it was effort all across the board because each of those 4 categories that we show up there, general fund one-time, general fund ongoing, all other funds one-time, all other funds ongoing, each of those 4 categories is less than it was last year in supplemental requests. So the departments got the word that things were flattening out from a revenue standpoint. They took that seriously and they held their requests down. So I appreciate staff's efforts on that and the director's efforts on keeping that down. Capital budget by source. So when we plan out this capital budget, it's a huge expense. So $579 million just in fiscal year 27. We have to look at multiple fund sources for this and what's appropriate for them. So for instance, development impact fees. Those are used for projects that are growth projects. We want growth to pay for growth. So we can set aside growth projects, use impact fees to pay for those. We have short-term projects or more maintenance type projects that don't create long-term assets. We want to use available cash for that. So we have pay-go in the general fund, which is money that has come in, one-time money that's set aside for that. Utility rates, we try to generate a little bit more than just the operating costs so that there's cash available for them to do projects that are shorter in nature. Transportation sales tax is another one that's an ongoing stream that we use to pay for some of these capital projects that are shorter in nature. And then we also, outside sources, we always want to be looking at, are there grants available? Are there ways that other people can contribute in to our capital projects and use those? With all that said, the biggest part of our capital program is debt financed. There's some good reasons for that. One, we have a very low cost of borrowing because of our bond ratings. Two, this creates intergenerational equity in the projects. So rather than making someone who today pay for the entire cost of a project that's going to be used over the next 30 years, we can issue debt for that, and the people who are using it over the 30 years will then be paying for that. So we do use debt. Some of it is GO bonds, a little bit of revenue bonds, which is primarily water, wastewater, and then we have some excise tax bonds out there. So we have a few tools in that belt to do that.
Councilor Bullock had a question.
Just real quick, if you go back to the previous slide,
Yep.
when you look at our, we'll say our 13 or 12 other West Valley City cohorts, from a debt point of 45.6%, is that above, below, or average? I know it's not apples to apples. I'm just trying to get a thought in my head compared to our cohorts in the West Valley as far as their funding mechanisms.
I don't have that information right
Okay.
in front of me. I'm not sure. I haven't looked at, but we can get back to you with that.
Just
kind
curious
of
where our debt,
layout
from
where
a
we're
debt from a
at.
financing, which makes sense. You have to do that,
Yeah.
where we sit from a percentage point of view, just roughly. That's all.
Yeah,
Thanks.
we can take a look at that and see where we're at with it.
Okay, thanks.
You got one more.
Councilor Stokes.
So
I'm only
would the-
looking to my left, and I'm only looking to my right. I don't know if you guys realize that or not.
We have to waive more.
We need those buttons back.
So I understand we are a little bit down on the budget this year versus the previous year, but the year before that, the reason that we had the hike last year in the budget was because of the big project roll forward. Is that still the case? What are the details behind why we're still up at 1.19?
You teed me up perfectly for this next slide. So this slide gives you the capital budget, 5.79 million, or 579 million, broken down into carryover of 248 million and a base, which is kind of new project or new budget for 27 of 331 million. That 248 million carryover is $40 million less than the carryover from last year. But the 331 million is actually higher than last year. So our total capital budget did increase in this time. But what this speaks to is the pace of the projects that are going now. So we have been, over the last couple of years, we have been putting projects in there and setting the funding aside to do those. However, it's taken us time to get ramped up into those projects. Those projects are now moving at a high pace. We're watching I'm watching the cash go out the door every week as these projects get moving. So yes, the capital budget is still high, but it's projects that are moving forward, and we expect to be paying down on that carryover and on the projects themselves as we move forward with it.
Mayor, Councilmember Stokes, if I could just add to that, just a couple of things I'll highlight inside of this that's there, and I mentioned this in the intro about the budget. If I was to look down, like on the PIC, Peoria Innovation Core line, 71 million carryover, 39 base. A large chunk of that is going to get spent, and until we're ready to bring new projects on, that number will not replenish at the same rate. Probably the single biggest line, and as mentioned earlier, base budget water line, 125 million. 90 million of that is a water resources acquisition. You back that one down, that number comes right off the top. 579 becomes 489. Now you're bringing in a budget that's less than or right at $1 billion. So I think you have this inclusion of a couple of just very unique opportunities on the tail end of a lot of projects finishing. Because you look at the cost of Lake Pleasant Parkway and Amcor Way, I mean, you're looking at $110 million between that and all the underlying infrastructure. That doesn't go back into the plan. So there might be some other additions in future years, but I want to say we're at the peak of a lot of these big time investments. And then you throw the water resource acquisition project that Kevin will talk about later. And it really starts to, it gave a big number when there's more been accomplished. And by the end of this year, I think you're going to see that number deflate even more. Thank you. Yep. So that was our intro and kind of overview. Any other questions, Mayor, Council? If not, we're going to turn it over to Peter and Kevin and Chris Hallett. They're going to talk about the admin side, the development side, and the operations side. Sir, you have a question?
Not really a question. I just had a comment that I wanted to make. I think I can speak for Councilman Edwards and myself. We've been here for 12 years. This is the best 8-page summary for us to read through and get a good grasp. John and I were reminiscing of people coming in with, these giant binders with, yellow tabs and stickies just everywhere in the thing and asking questions. This is a great summary. So compliments to the staff for putting this together. It really painted a good picture for us. I don't know why Jason's laughing. He probably likes the details, but it really, it really painted the picture, at least for me and for John, when we were talking about what this, you know, entailed, and kind of broke it down for us. So kudos to the staff. Just thank you so much for this. It was very, very helpful.
Excellent. Thank you, sir.
I had said the same thing. That's why it was.
I said it better.
Yes, you did. Yeah. Jeez. Such a. I know. Do you want here? Don't give it to him.
All right. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Good to be with you tonight. As we get into the operating budget portion of the budget, I just want to make clear that we can't possibly go over everything that's in this book. So what we're presenting to you in these slides are the highlights, right? We're going to give you an overview of the department's budgets, how many FTEs they have, those kinds of things. We'll hit some of the highlights of the supplemental requests that the departments have made. But if there's something you saw as you were going through this and you want to ask about, we welcome those questions, and we'll do our best to answer them. The other thing is, as we go through the slides, the ones on the supplemental requests, you'll see that we've bolded some of the requests, and that's to denote that those requests are ongoing and to differentiate them from one-time requests. So hopefully that makes sense, and you can see that. Okay, so I'm gonna cover what we call the administration departments. There are 8 departments in the city that make up, that fall under the administration category. And these are the departments that primarily provide support to the rest of the organization. They're the internal service and leadership functions that keep city operations running efficiently, legally, and strategically. Combined, the administration departments have 216 FTEs and a total budget of $59 million. A large share of the costs of these departments get recovered through indirect cost allocation to other funds in the city. What isn't recovered in that way comes out of the general fund. As you can see from the pie chart here, 56% of the budget is personnel costs, and then the other large category is contractual. The contractual is mostly made up of IT-related costs like software maintenance and licensing fees. We also have the claims and insurance for the whole city included in that contractual amount. So that's why it's a little bigger than some of the other departments you'll see. Okay, for FY27, ongoing budget additions in the administration area include an assistant city prosecutor in the attorney's office and maintenance and licensing cost increases in the IT department. Want to spend a minute on the assistant city prosecutor. For the last couple years, the city attorney's office has been using what we call fixed-term benefited employees. They're really contract employees to address increasing volume and complexity of DUI and domestic violence cases. The trouble they've had is they have not been able to either find, or when they do find attorneys for this purpose, they don't stick around. And so that was a good effort on their part to try to minimize our ongoing costs, but it just didn't work. So for this year, they came back and said, you know what, we'll give up those 2 contract positions, but we need 1 ongoing FTE to prosecute these cases. So that's what that is. There are also a number of one-time requests scattered across the administration departments. These include just a few examples: the cost of the 2026 primary and general elections for mayor and 3 council seats, as well as a franchise election and a potential bond election. The backfilling of 2 positions in the finance department as part of the implementation of a new utility billing system that we're about to undertake. Right-sizing the budget for Workday, our new ERP system, and exploring system enhancement options as we get deeper and deeper into that system. And then we have a citizen survey to gather feedback from residents about their satisfaction levels, needs, and priorities. And then finally, consulting, legal, and other professional services related to the development of the Peoria Innovation Corps. So those are some of the highlights of the new ads in the administration departments. Okay, Mike alluded to this earlier. This is an exciting new thing that is actually not in the budget yet. It's not in the budget because of the timing. We're actually going to get started on this in the current fiscal year, so we have some actions coming to council in the next month or so. But we want to highlight this. This is we call it a near site health clinic. I'll get into the location in a minute, but this is going to be an important part of our strategy to mitigate against future health insurance costs like the one we're seeing this year. The health clinic is intended to be a whole health model for employees, their families, and retirees that can meet most of their medical needs. Clinical services available on site will include advanced primary and preventive care, limited prescription drug dispensing, occupational health services, mental health services, physical therapy, and a recharge room. So quite a lot of services to be offered at this clinic. As you've probably already seen from the slide, a site for the clinic has already been selected. It's a former dental office located at 75th Avenue and Greenway Road. Mike talked about how our consultants did a lot of analysis of not only where City Hall is and where employees live, but where their families are, and tried to pick a location that would be most conducive to not only the employees but their families actually utilizing the clinic. And so they went out and looked at seven different sites and ultimately settled on this one. The clinic will help lower overall healthcare costs by diverting plan members from traditional healthcare providers and to the clinic, and thus we save money by avoiding claims costs to our health plan. So it's critical to understand that the more people who use the clinic, the greater the savings to the city. So as we go through this process, employee engagement and outreach is going to be a big success factor. The reason the clinic's not in the budget yet is because we need to get started this fiscal year in order to open in January 2027. Staff is finalizing the contract with Marathon Health, which is our partner in all this, and we'll be bringing that contract to the City Council in the next month or so, as well as a related budget amendment for startup costs in the amount of $2.7 million. Those startup costs are being paid 100% by fund balance in our Employee Benefits Trust Fund over and above the required reserves. The whole idea of the clinic has been presented to our employee trust board, and they've wholeheartedly endorsed it and approved this idea. We've also applied for a grant to offset the cost of the equipment that will be going into the clinic, and so we're optimistic that some of that $2.7 million will actually be reduced and paid for by other funds. So once approved, the city will work with Marathon Health to negotiate a lease agreement, and then they will begin remodeling that space and hopefully have it open for January 2027. Okay, the last thing I'm going to hit tonight is our review and update of fees. Last year we updated our internal administrative policy on fees, and we require now a triannual review cycle with every budget cycle, as we show in the table. Year one, we addressed development fees. You probably remember that. I think that came to you for approval in August and took effect in September, sometime around then. We're now in year two, which is a review of administrative and business fees in the city attorney, city clerk, court, communications, and finance departments. As we kind of dove into this, it became apparent that many of these fees hadn't been looked at in over 20 years, and that quite a few of them were completely obsolete and hadn't been even charged in years. So one of the primary benefits of this year's review was simply cleaning up and eliminating stuff that just didn't need to be there. And when we bring that back to you, the code will be cleaned up with fees that are actually relevant to our operations today. The year two fees that are still valid are not major revenue producing fees. So the total of all the changes we're making this year are estimated to generate less than $100,000 in revenue, which is a very small amount compared to the overall city revenues. And most of that $100,000 or so is coming from a single new fee, which I'm going to talk about in just a minute. So given the minimal impact of the changes, I'm not really going to dwell on specific fees. We do have all the details, and if there are any questions about those, we're happy to answer them. As we went through the fees, we did add 3 new fees for services that we've been providing for many years, but haven't had the ability to collect a fee because we didn't have it in code. The first 2 of these are interesting, but they are infrequent, and the revenue from them is very insignificant. I was hoping there wouldn't be any questions on those, but I can get into it if you want. No, they're legit. Solid waste, however, does get about 1,500 requests a year to go back to residents and pick up containers after they've already completed the route. So at $50, this new fee would generate about $80,000 a year. The hope or the intent of the fee is to actually discourage this behavior and minimize the number of times we have to go back and pick up those containers, because it's costly, especially in an environment where fuel costs are as high as they are right now. So those are the new fees. Now for the updated fees. I will tell you, we didn't really do any serious cost analysis or apply any hardcore methodologies to this. We simply looked at what other cities in the valley are charging for the same things and tried to be in the middle or average. These fees serve a purpose, but they don't generate a lot of revenue. Most of the updated fees, as you can see, are liquor license fees. So you have a few random ones at the top, and then everything else is liquor licenses. So in terms of next steps for this fee process, we're going to post a 60-day public notice in the next week. And then we are planning to bring this to council on June 2nd for your consideration and approval, with an effective date of July 2nd, if approved. So with that, I'm happy to take any questions about the administration departments, the clinic, or this fee update that we've been engaged in.
I'm looking to my right. Nope. Councilor Bullock. Oh, no, I'm sorry. No, we're good.
Okay, thank you.
I just have, Mayor, if I could, I just want to make one observation, and I want to give a shout out to the HR team for bringing forth the clinic idea. At the end of the day, and I mentioned this earlier, there's a lot of pressure and pain that goes into the conversations around, healthcare costs and wage increases. And I think this is something that Christine and her team has championed for a while. I think there was a big jump from all of us at the opportunity. I think the ingenuity, the idea of bringing this forth as an employee benefit that has a positive financial and a positive well-being impact is going to be well received. And so the more, Peter said it well, the more we get the employees to use it, the better it is for them, the better it is for the overall health plan. So it's rare in life we get win-wins. So Christine, thank you for your team in bringing that forward.
All right, I'm going to handle the development department. Similar to last year, we're grouping, somehow we got, that's interesting. Where's the other one? There it is. Change the order on me. I'm going to start here, just because that's what I was ready for. The 3 departments, well, spoiler alert, here they are: planning and development, development and engineering, and economic development. Here's their sub-budgets, but together, combined, there are 98 FTEs serving the development community at just under $22 million. They are primarily funded through general fund, half-cents, sales tax, street funds, and user fees. Almost 3/4 of this is personnel. It's heavily staff intensive to do this. There is contractual that we'll talk about here in order to augment the staffing needs and some of the vacancies that they're encountering right now. So some of the notable budget items here for the development engineering department, you'll see $1.4 million worth of asks, all of which are one-time. Only 31,000 is ongoing, and all of which is recoverable through fees, permits, inspections, construction taxes. All but 45,000 is a true net cost that is an impact. So the first 2, the project management for consulting service, this is contracted specifically for Amcor, dedicated project management, and the second one, contract plan review and inspection. This is for
the initiatives in the PIC, NPG, and Vistancia, and they serve two reasons. One, to provide dedicated services to these high priority areas, and two, to prevent a negative impact on the mainstay development of our community. So it really serves two purposes to have these dedicated that are recoverable. In addition, some overtime funds because they are running some vacancies there. It's a constant recruitment challenge that we're working on. And then two, contract for the managing the rapid expansion of telecoms and fiber utilities. So one inspector dedicated just for that increase with all the development that's going on in there. And then in our economic development services, again, these are one-time fees in order to enhance and augment our special professional services for specialized expertise in our high priorities economic development initiatives. 5 North, the property won't own up there. Until we sell it, we have monthly fees for property maintenance and association fees, as well as all the activity we're doing to both acquire and develop properties come with their own set of fees for closing costs and whatnot. That's development in a hot second. Any questions on that? All right. Oh, question?
The association fees caught me off guard on the 5 North. Who do we pay that to?
It's the POA out there. So it's roughly $4,200 a month for maintenance, for Vistancia maintenance fees, as well as the POA.
Wow.
Commercial,
Okay, thanks.
we're a member, I assume. Yep, just like,
I hope so for 50 grand.
well, maintenance is a heavy one in there for.
It's a joke.
So we want to sell it quick, save some money.
All right, I got the third leg, which is operations. 5 departments in operations here, but I'll turn it right back to Mr. Howlett to talk about neighborhood and human services since he was the exiting director there. So you want to start that one up?
That'd be great. Yeah, breeds familiarity for me. So NHS has a fairly flat budget year over year. It's about 1%, and that takes into consideration 1 FTE. By the way, the 0.25 is 3 3/4 positions, so you wouldn't meet any quarter people. Budget's just over 25 million, funded through general fund user fees, federal and state grants. Here, only about 50% is staff charges. A lot of those grants are passed through and are contractual in nature. We have the youth services. So there's an increase in ADA modifications and compliance. So we asked for 1 position ongoing for that. There's rising ADA combination requests for our AM, PM, preschool, and summer school camp programs, which are required by DES, DHS, and ADA compliance. These average almost 40 hours per request, and we're getting almost 1 request per month. So it's really taken a significant impact on existing staff. Additionally, the mandatory PTNB wage increases, Prop 206 increase that we ask for every year. That's going to raise our minimum wage to $15.15 according to the CPI index applied, according to state statute. The neighborhood grants of $300,000. We're in the first year, fiscal 26 first year. We increased that. Historically, it's been $150,000 through the encouragement of mayor and council. We're through the $300,000 this year and have 17 neighborhood projects waiting in the wings, already amounting up to $240,000. This is a great program to lift the older parts of and more traditional neighborhoods in the city, and really helps lower or level up those neighborhoods. Homeless services requests. So ARPA is coming to an end this calendar year. So this will supplement. This won't supplement, it'll augment, replace these. And many of these were already being paid for with general funds, so we had savings about to this month every year, much every year. While we had ARPA, so ARPA's concluding. So this will allow us continuation with shelters, men's shelters at Deep Within, women and children at the West Valley Homeless Assistance Center, Phoenix Rescue Mission, and it also adds in some new mental health services funding for that. The transit rebranding and changes, hopefully you're well aware, we've been in front of you a number of times on that. This, although it's ongoing, it's a little misleading because one, it's not general fund, it has its own funding source. Two, it's probably offset by a lot of the savings of the ride choice from paratransit and the like. So there's a lot of savings on that side. We're getting rid of the We Ride. We're going to the on-demand. So this covers the upgrade for software to allow for on-demand. It includes a part-timer that helps with the increased need for on-demand, as well as transit network company overflow through Uber and Lyft and the like.
Great. All right, moving on. Arts, culture, and library services. This is small but mighty department of 38 and about a $10 million budget. You can see contractuals is about 42%, a little larger than some of our other departments as far as that balance, but that's primarily because we do a lot of our events through contracts. We do the PCPA is managed through a contract, and we have materials for libraries, through the contract. So there's a lot of that stuff that you can find in there, as well as just the service charges between funds for maintaining the facilities associated with libraries primarily. In terms of notable budget items in here, we have a special events coordinator. This is actually, we talked about this idea of contract employees. We've had a contract employee doing special events for 5 years. We've actually been able to transition that to a full-time equivalent so that they're a regular employee. That's a big win here, but speaks to the stability of our event program. In terms of non-benefited library and event, this is the minimum wage issue that Chris spoke about in Neighborhood and Human Services. It shows up again when you use a lot of part-time non-benefited employees to do library and arts and culture activities. The next one is probably the most exciting part of 27 for me, is that we actually will be starting up our water tower, our digital water tower in this fiscal year, but the main operating costs will show up in FY27 for that. But the real big amenity change to our community is going to be the Schoolhouse Arts and Culture Center. This is just what it says. We are putting in the historic schoolhouse in downtown a arts and culture center. This is bringing to our community an arts gallery, a cultural exhibit hall, and as well as an all ages learning studio. So lots of classes and activities to bring, whether it's from kids to adults, learning and participating in the arts right here in downtown. It'll also be a place to host a lot of our events, particularly Light at Play, which is coming up in just another month here, and an exciting element. So that's a big one. And you can see those first three are ongoing expenditures. The last two, we do our special events and some of our grants and programming through one-time dollars, and that's really what drives that one. So that's our arts and culture element. All right, I'll move on to Parks and Recreation. So the Parks and Recreation is a 92-person budget and almost $37 million. Again, personnel, contractual, but then you see operating capital, which is not one that you see in everybody's departments. And so just to call that out, these are things that we see regularly, like fencing for ball fields, replacing canopies on shade structures, smaller projects in the sports complex, whether it might be some seat replacements or things of that nature. So there is a capital that doesn't necessarily show up on the CIP because they're smaller, more operating type activities that go on within Parks and Recreation. So that's why you see 19% dedicated to capital in that budget. Lots going on in Parks and Recreation. Certainly the minimum wage increase, again, strikes right at the top, and that's an ongoing expenditure. More program costs. We will be having actually a full study session on the progress associated with more in the next, I think it's next month we hit that one. It's very exciting. There are some big changes getting going already. The staff's getting turned up. We're seeing trails being built. We're getting ready to accept some land. So some really fun progress to report on at the upcoming study session. Park Ambassador Program. This is one that we're really taking a formalized formalization of the program. These are folks that really help with the rangers in patrolling parks, but also helping folks with finding their ramadas, making sure they're on the right field when they rent them, things of that nature. When we're closing down at night, making sure people are clearing out. We don't have any big issues in restrooms or trash cans or graffiti or something of that nature. Really some eyes and ears on the parks on a regular basis to keep everybody informed and be quicker in our reactions. We have, this one's exciting. You'll hear a little bit more about it in the CIP side of it, but we have a couple of developer-built parks that are coming online with Mystic and Alora Vita. Those operating costs become part of our regular budget each and every year, but the actual capital part was not our expense. And again, CIP will cover a little bit of that later tonight. Facilities Condition Index. This was an important program that was started a few years ago, really trying to get at what is the condition of each and every park, not just from a maintenance standpoint, but condition of the amenities and the infrastructure, and making sure that we've got that park equity across North and South Parks throughout Peoria, and making sure that we're investing to keep every park on kind of an equal par there. So that's our index evaluation. And then the last one is some pick right away. We're building new streets with some nice landscape medians in it. We got to take care of them. This just gets added to the contract to make sure we're taking care of those rights of way. Moving on to Public Works, a pretty big department here of 174 FTEs and almost $63 million. The largest part in a operation and maintenance department, not surprising, is contractual services. We got to send our solid waste somewhere. We need contracts with landfills to take that. That's a big money coming into it. But we're also buying asphalt to patch streets. We're paying utility bills to keep lights on and air conditioning in all of our buildings. Janitorial services. We purchase a lot of fuel to run garbage trucks, streets, things of that nature. So it's not surprising that contractual is the biggest slice of the pie for Public Works when you look at those sorts of things. Moving on to notable budget items, we're adding a fleet supervisor is the recommendation for FY27. This is not just really as much about a part of growth, although our fleet has been growing each and every year, but it's more part of how 24/7, 365 our operations are. We've got cars on the streets every hour of the day, every day of the week, every week of the year. And so maintaining that, we're doing shift operations with our fleet. We only have one supervisor in fleet. This gives us two. So we got an early shift and a late shift across the week that this will cover. So this is a good part of it. The next one is really a code issue on the NFPA is the fire side of it, but it's really a National Electric Code change that is coming up in mid-year. And it's the idea of checking kind of testing, servicing, and cleaning of electrical gear. You need a particularly trained technician to do that service. We have a lot of electrical gear across this organization. This is the idea of bringing a staff on that has that skill, giving the equipment to make sure we're staying compliant with those inspections and testing of our electrical gear. Solid waste container management. It's hard to tell exactly. That is bold, but it's really the container management side of the equation. You may be surprised to find, we have 65,000 accounts roughly across the city. That's two a garbage can and a recycle can for each of them. So you got about almost 130,000 trash cans out there. They break. Wheels break, lids break, cans get holes in them. We get about 15,000 requests a year to change out those cans. And so that container management is a part that rather than doing it with one-time money, we're moving it into the ongoing. But just buying, we have about 1,000 to 1,200 new homes each year. We got to buy new cans and put them out there. Those are recovered in the fees, but it's an expense on the way out the door. So that's included in that line. Streetlights, signal electricity. APS is proposing a rather large increase in rates this year for commercial industrial. About 16% is the proposal. So we don't expect them to land on that number exactly with the Corporation Commission, but we know it's going to be a sizable increase, and so we are budgeting accordingly for some electricity increases. Again, particularly we spend a lot of electricity on streetlights, not surprising there. The rest of it pretty self-explanatory, but Pioneer Park is due for a new parking lot or parking lot refresh, and so that's the big driver there. I'm going to stop there with questions before I go into water resources. Anything on the first three departments?
Councilor Bullock.
Actually, in the previous Parks and Rec, you don't need to go back. You don't list anything about Discovery Park. Is that that'll be opened next year or in the fiscal next year? So
Yes,
is there
sir.
any reason why that's not? Is that because it's a joint project?
No, it actually isn't in there because it was funded in FY26 as an operation. We were expecting Discovery Park to open somewhere in the spring of 26, so we actually funded it in this year. It looks like it's not going to open till July, so it'll be in the next fiscal year, but it's already budgeted as an ongoing fund. We're just carrying over and moving it forward.
So so you're not projecting any maintenance funds. I should have said that whole sentence there. Maintenance funds, like in the previous slide you showed for the two new parks, or one of the new parks at least, Mystic Park.
Yes, sir.
Who the developer
So-
put the money in. So will there be maintenance costs associated with that? Because it's a unique between ALA, Vistancia Land Holdings, of course, and the city of Peoria.
Yes, Mayor, Councilmember, or Mayor Pro Tem Bullock, absolutely. What I was trying to communicate is that those maintenance costs are already in the existing budget because we expected the park to open earlier
Gotcha.
in this fiscal year. So we didn't have to put it in FY27 because it was already there. We just haven't spent any of that money yet until we get to FY27.
Okay, and then when and obviously, since it'll be our park to manage, just like Mystic, when they turn it over to us, that's year upon year upon year of maintenance. Will that go through parks then at that point, correct?
Yes, sir. So it's 100% our responsibility. Once it's dedicated to the city, it becomes our responsibility for operation and
And that becomes part of, just like any park, becomes part of the annual budget just for maintenance.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
Kevin, before you jump in, you may want to touch on general fund user fees, the last 4 pages of the book.
Absolutely, and it's a good comment. To full transparency, again, we have fees, the last literally 4 pages of your binder here will list fee changes associated with parks, neighborhood services, and arts, culture, and library. And you say, well, why didn't you have them on the earlier slides? You'll remember 2 years ago, the way we did fees in those departments is we adopted a maximum and said they cannot go over these numbers, but you can make adjustments on an annual basis so long as they stay under them. Again, for full transparency, we put them in the budget document to show which ones. So it's the full table of fees, just the ones that are changed then are within that. But you'll see all the ones, some of them don't change, some of them do change. So I did want to hit that. Any other comments or questions? All right, I'm going to move on to water, which is the last one there. Again, another large department, operating department of 120 folks, 64 million, and an even bigger contractual element to it. Again, water's expensive, treating water's expensive, treating wastewater is expensive, pushing reclaimed water and water throughout the community takes a lot of electricity. Those are all contractual expenses, and it's why that represents such a big portion of that budget. Within the budget, though, we've got the 3 new positions. The first one, a business systems analyst. We have, whether it's the water resource analysis that needs to be done, some conservation analysis, asset management analysis. There's really a need for that additional labor in the department. Utility operator and valve truck. I don't know the exact number. Dave probably knows it off the top of his head, but we have tens of thousands of valves in our water lines. And they need to be exercised because there's nothing worse than we got a water leak, we want to isolate it, we go out there to turn the valve and we snap it because it hasn't been exercised, it hasn't been greased, etc. And then now you got 2 problems you got to solve and a bigger water leak or water area that's continuing to leak. So this is just a routine, or it gets into that routine maintenance and make sure that we're taking care of the infrastructure that we have in place. And the last one, environmental compliance inspector. This is really on our multi-year gear up for pre-industrial inspection. People come to this podium on a regular basis, very concerned about what industry might pollute our water or wastewater. This is a program. We've had a program in place for decades. This is gearing up with a bit more aggressive inspections. Not aggressive inspection, we just have more things to inspect now. And so we're getting a person and a program that is out there inspecting it. And so this is just the next increment in that program. Water supply increases, again, just the existing water itself gets more expensive each and every year. interns. What we found with the water industry is that there's not a lot of folks going into it, and you kind of got to grow your own talent. And so starting with high school interns has proven to be a very successful way for us to find talent to stay in this profession, and just you get them there and then you grow them in with the trainings and licensing associated with water and wastewater treatment. So it's turned out to be a very successful program. The sewer combination truck, sometimes called a vac truck. This is the truck that's got all sorts of cool stuff on it. But one of the biggest part is the hose that you stick down, whether it's in drainage or sewer or water line. Well, not so much water lines, water, drainage and sewer, and you suck them clean to make sure you get all the debris out of there and things flow better. So that's an important part. And the last one I know is near and dear to a lot of folks on this commission, because you get the call about odor. And so trying to take up our odor control program another notch in this next year with some real effective programs that we've been piloting and ready to implement on a broader scope across the city there. So that's about the operation. Wanted to talk about this opportunity to acquire water. As you know, lots of press about the state of the Colorado River, particularly the operating agreement between the 7 states make up the upper and lower basin. They've been negotiating for years. They had a deadline of Valentine's Day to reach an agreement. Otherwise, the Bureau of Reclamation would make the decision for them. They didn't make it. Bureau of Reclamation said, hey, here's how we would implement the operations of the Colorado River. And they did that in what's known as a draft environmental impact statement, DEIS. That DEIS is certainly not favorable to Arizona. And you've probably seen some of that media attention as well. It's very, very concerning as far as its impact on Arizona. Peoria has joined most of the other municipalities in the metro area in protest of how that DEIS is being written and proposed to be implemented. So there's definitely some other processes that need to take place, but the change is scheduled to go into effect in January of next year. So we've got to be ready for that now. So with that, wanted to walk through just a little bit. Peoria has about a 34,000 acre foot allocation of Colorado River water. We don't use nearly that much, but it's important to just understand. We utilize about 20,000 acre feet. At least last year we used 20,000 acre feet. The rest we store underground. We've got about 6 years worth of water stored underground that for those times where we have a shortfall in just a single year, we have the ability to pull that out. That's the importance of wells. Pull it out and supplement a shortfall in Colorado River water. We also recognize that's not our only water source. We have a pretty sizable amount that comes from Salt River Project, about 10,000 acre feet, and that's that area south of Bell Road. But anyways, back to the Bureau of Reclamation and the DEIS. One of the proposals, their base proposal there, would cut Peoria's Colorado River allocation by 57%. That's about 19,000 acre feet of water that would be cut. So that's a pretty important impact. Again, we have some additional capacity, but that's going to make an impact in our operation. Now, the idea of building that portfolio has been a regular responsibility of this organization. And so we started in 1988 with 15,000 acre feet, and we've been acquiring ever since. We've made 7 acquisitions since '88 for another 19,000 acre feet of Colorado River water, and that includes buying 4 water companies and leasing Indian water rights. But again, we remain active in that. You'll remember in last year's CIP, we looked at the inclusion of a project at Bartlett Dam to expand or increase the dam to capture peak water that comes from a snow runoff about every 4th year and add about 1,400 acre feet to it. At the time and in the CIP budget, it was budgeted at $50 million. Unfortunately, there's been more analysis, inflation, and all that good stuff. After evaluating, the feds have increased the cost of this project to about $100 million, and they've reduced the supply about 50%. So it's not it's not our favorite investment, so we have looked at an alternative, and one has been presented to us. And that is essentially the idea of buying long-term storage credits. This is Colorado River water that has been stored underground. We have the opportunity to purchase 173,000 acre feet. Again, remember, our total allocation is is in the 34,000 range, and we're looking at 173. But you spread it over actually 100 years, not 10 years. And that's 1,730 acre feet per year for 100 years. Why 100 years? That's the designation of assured water supply is over 100 years. So you take that and say, that's what we could count on each and every year. Now, acre feet, that confuses the tar out of most people. How much water is that? What are we talking about? That's essentially 1.5 million gallons a day, every day for the next 100 years. That's a pretty significant water supply to be able to acquire. Now, the idea is we would take the New Verde Bartlett Dam out of it and we'd put this project in because the cost is about the same dollars, but a lot more, one, guaranteed, because the water's there, it's ready to go. Two, we control it and we're not relying upon other parties to get us to that point. So it's 104 acres. It's about 120 acres of land out in La Paz County. It would include pumps, pump house, controls, piping. The idea is that you take the water stored underground, you pull it out, you put it back in the CAP, it rolls down the canal, we pull it out at Pyramid Peak, treat it, distribute it, just like any other Colorado River water that happens today. So it's an ideal location and situation. So we have engaged the seller on this to a point where we have locked in our interest to buy it. They've taken it off the market and said, we'll exclusively work with you on a purchase and sale agreement. In the meantime, we've been given 6 months of due diligence to look at water testing, permits, any rate studies that we need to look at as far as financing this, et cetera. So we should be back to council. Actually, we're going to come back to you in a couple series of water study sessions, starting with kind of a review of the portfolio, then the solutions, then the purchase agreement, so that you kind of see the progress and why we believe this makes good sense. So more to come on this, but it's a really exciting opportunity for the city to, especially in this era of water resources going away, the fact that we're adding water resources is really counteracting that sort of trend and puts us in a really good situation. So any questions on the water piece?
There's going to be a couple questions on this.
Okay.
Councilor Bullock?
Thanks for looking left, by the way. I was taking it personal when he looked that way the first time twice.
Well,
As a resident, I'd ask the following question. So I'm stepping out of council member mode, if you will. So as a resident, would ask, we're acquiring additional water portfolio to add to our portfolio. Of course, smart, because we're going to get hammered with the Colorado River. No matter what happens, it's not going to be pretty, I don't think. Part of the water we have is going to be for growth, obviously to manage growth. And part of what we're acquiring is if we get hit hard or a drought or something bad happens and affects our portfolio or our water abilities, we don't have enough water for existing people. So as a resident, is there a way to get an approximation for, of all this that we're acquiring and the water that we have, how much is it really for new development and how much of it is just to maintain what we have today?
Sure.
Because again, and I see this a lot in my district now, people are saying, well, why? And I would have asked the same thing until I learned a lot about water through your department and through David as well. Why do we keep developing? Why do we keep building when we have to spend so much money on water? Why don't we just stop where we are today and just kind of mitigate losses here and there from the Colorado River? Does that make sense?
Makes perfect sense. Mayor Pro Tem Bullock, this could probably be another 20-minute session just on this topic, but I'll try to keep it short and sweet. I mean, first and foremost, this is about redundancy. And what we've learned with water in Arizona is you can never have too much of it. And so having the redundancy protects us against things like annual shortfalls on the Colorado River or long-term shortfalls through renegotiations from over-allocation or whatever the situation may be. So this, the vision on this one is probably 50% of this water goes to just straight redundancy for existing water users and the other 50% towards growth. Now, inevitably, someone's going to try to tie this to Amcor. The only way Amcor gets water is if you flush your toilet. They are using reclaimed water. If you don't want Amcor to have water, don't take a shower, don't flush your toilet. That's the way otherwise they're getting the water separately.
Explain that, because I think that's a big deal. So, I mean, kind of get into a little bit more depth of that so people
Sure.
truly understand that, because that's such a significant deal, because everybody automatically assumes that that's not really the case, right?
Right.
So we need to really explain to them how
Well,
that comes
that
about.
is the beauty of the development agreement that was negotiated with Amcor, is that, yes, they're a large water user, but they're a large water user of reclaimed water. Reclaimed water is just that. It's water that you've already used, flushed down your toilet, taken a shower. It's then cleaned and sent to alternative uses such as golf courses, industrial uses like Amcor. So adding 1.5 million gallons a day of new drinkable water isn't changing that situation one iota. So
And they're cleaning it. You know, Amcor cleans it again to a whole other level.
you know, and back to the Amcor example, Mary, thanks for the reminder, is that it's somewhat just a cycle. So we send them the reclaimed water. They have to actually treat it to get it to their standards, because they have to have some very pure water for their processes. And then they send it back out again through their sewer line, which comes into our sewer plant. We do our treatment and we turn it right back and send it back to them. So it's in a circle.
So what we're
pretty
getting,
much.
what we're getting them, or what they're buying from reclaimed, we're getting 80% of that back, correct?
Yes. I mean, there is a small portion that they need to use for the rest of their operation. There's also loss of water just associated with their processes. But yes, 80% of the reclaimed water comes back to us.
And then it recycles again.
So it's a net of about 300,000 to 600,000 gallons per day at full build out. So it's a very well thought out, prudent use of our water resources. But this is about redundancy for existing water users and a bit of growth for the other pieces of our portfolio.
You got something as well?
Why don't you go first?
You can go ahead first.
I just wanted to expand upon something Kevin had said a little bit ago in the history of the acquisition. It is important to note, as Kevin said, all the way back to 1988 when we got our first allocation from the Colorado River, it was only 15,000 acre-feet of water. That is less than half of what we have now. And so it was a lot of diligence over the decades of putting that together. Acquisition of 4 water companies, a 7,000 acre-foot lease. But it is important to note that from 2007 to 2022, that we were not active in the water acquisition world. And so I think with this administration, I think with Brett Fleck, who's recently left the organization, Kate Powers when he was in the director's seat, now Dave as he's taking over, have been very bullish on acquisition of water. Most recently, the Rose Water Company was the last acquisition. And it is important to acquiring any water company is not necessarily the right answer, because there's some of them who do not have rights to water. They're just bringing out groundwater. But it's been a very intelligent move, and it's something that this council, that we as a staff will continue to advocate for. So if there's additional opportunities, whether it's through technology, which we'll hear in the CIP of advanced water purification, or it's acquisition of raw water, we will continue to bring these things back for your consideration, because building our portfolio over time is a key component of stewardship in the desert. And we see that from slightly more mature cities with some of our counterparts. They've been doing this and they're very bullish on it, have been on years. So acquisition of this water, it's interesting because the property and next to it, that property is owned by another municipality who's doing the same thing. So we're not out of turn. We're not out doing speculation. This is a proven science that a lot of people have done. So I applaud Kevin and his team for bringing it forward to your consideration. Yes, the numbers can be shocking, but at the end of the day, everybody was behind the new Verde Dam project, but when the price doubles and the water output shrinks in half, hey, listen, you're already planning for it. This seems like a very smart and wise, but as Kevin said, multiple study sessions to come. And this is important to note, even though it's in the CIP, if you were to vote on the budget for put it in the CIP, there's still a purchase and sale agreement that has to come in front of council. So there's a two-step process that you get to consider before a decision is made.
Can you go back a couple slides? Right here. So the 34,000 acre feet, right? So our total utilization going forward. So go forward one more. So our total acquisition, everything that we've acquired has been purchased, with the exception of cap. But even that we purchase. So over a 20-year period, right? We went through this process, and we haven't really acquired anything since 2007.
Yes, Mayor. 2007 to 2022 was a dry period inside of it.
Dry period of purchasing is what you're saying,
Yes, sir.
right? So it was like we were back. So throughout that process, I mean, I remember our first meeting, right? Literally, I don't even think I was sworn in yet. I think it was like
May not have been,
it was our training days, if you will, as me as like a junior associate mayor or something like that at that point, right? And literally the what was supposed to be an hour-long meeting ended up turning into 4 hours with Cape and really going through this process, because it was like this realization that it's like, if we don't do these next steps, and how are we going to how are we going to put more money into water infrastructure, right? The reason that when we went down the Verde Dam aspect and look at how much money we were going to spend, to your point, it's like we knew we were going to spend this $100 million on this process over this period of time, but our expectation during those negotiations, or what they were telling us, and I think some of you guys have gone through this water-wise because you've been here for a while, was that we were expecting to receive that offset that was going to happen. But now that the feds are involved in the process, and you start going down this, and it's 50% cut of what our expectation was, you really need to go back to this thinking. And I don't know if citizens realize that the investment in the future is water, right? We have to not only invest in doing something like this where we're returning water ourselves. We literally could almost cut ourselves off the cap by doing something like this, which is that significant. Because, so I have a ranch in Colorado, and I'm at 9,000 feet. Last year there was 4.5 feet of snow, and I was in my snowcat on spring break with my kids. I was literally there last week with my kids, and I drove my entire ranch in my truck. There was no snow whatsoever. At 10,000 feet, there's still snowpack. It's not very heavy, but I'm talking zero snow at 9,000 feet, which is absolutely crazy. And we're talking about a large mesa that has no snow on it whatsoever. So when people may not realize that is where that water comes from, 36% of our water from the cap comes from the Colorado River. When you start to look at that, in fact, we had a speaker last night that actually talked about there's no water. So I hope that person comes back and realizes this is why we're making an acquisition like this, because we need to spend money so we can actually replace this, so we have stability. Yes. We talk about, as a group, we talk about a diversified revenue model when it comes to fees. We have to take the same thing when we have a diversified water model when we go to these things. It means we have to spend money to actually make sure that we take care of citizens long term. I want to bring the MCOR thing back into it, because I completely agree with Councilmember Bullock. Everybody automatically is going to go, especially in North Peoria, is going to go, well, we're only doing this because we're trying to take care of more business. It has literally nothing to do with AMCOR whatsoever. Kevin pointed out, flush your toilet, take a shower. Guess what? That water is going as reclaimed water to AMCOR in the future. Clearly, they're not getting that water right now, but that's where that water is going to go. And then they're going to clean it, and then clean it so well, and then return 80% of that back to us. You cannot get a better investment than that, right? It just doesn't exist. So for me personally, I think this is a great direction. Talking about it a couple of weeks ago was like, how do we not do this? Again, see a lot of nods and things like that. I think all of us are very happy that you're actually thinking about this, and thanks for doing the work on it. So.
If I could just add one budget detail, which is that you saw the price was 104 million, but we've talked about a 90 million delta. That's because about that $15 million we're actually paying in FY26 with $26. The 90 million would be the balance in 27.
Nice.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, Mayor, as we transition to the public safety group, it's been 97 minutes. I'm going to suggest we take 10.
Okay.
Why don't we take 13 and come back at 10 minutes till? And then that
Exactly
way we're at a
13
hard
minutes.
number and we're good to go. So public safety at 10 minutes too.
Definitely bothersome.
Why does the council member have 9 cookies? Oh, sorry.
All right, Mayor and Council, Travis is going to lead with the chiefs, Judge Tats, to get us through the public safety portion of the operations. Travis.
Thank you, City Manager Faust, and good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Reminded the chiefs and our presiding judge that we only have 5 hours to get through this, and they said we'd get through it in about 4.5 hours. So, all right, good deal. Without further ado, we'll start with the police. Overview of police. Police has 379 FTEs. That's both sworn and civilian, with a budget of $92.1 million that's funded through general fund, grants, and forfeiture funds. About 76% of that budget is personnel and 18% contractual. And then we've got 4% commodities and 2% capital. So I'm going to hand it over to our police chief to go through his supplemental request.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council, City Manager Faust. For fiscal year 27, some of the notable budget items I'd like to bring to your attention is we've added 4 professional staff for civilian positions. Purposely, 2 of them are civilian investigators assigned to the Real-Time Crime Center. The purpose behind this is to expand our hours and our coverage and our service for both patrol response, patrol support, and also as we bring to light the drone first responder program. As you walked in tonight, to the right, out the windows, you could see the drones as they've just been set up this week, and we're getting ready to start with the training portion of that here in the next couple of weeks. They will be fully operational. Third position, case management civilian investigator. A couple of years ago, Maricopa County attorneys started a new program that required put all the workload on the agencies to get case information to them. And this will enable us to bring a civilian in to focus strictly on all that felony case information. In addition to the workflow that we've created, will take much of the work off of the patrol officers who take that initial response, that initial report, and gather that information all together. So it's no longer going to be a 2-step process, but now it'll be a 1-step process. So we're bringing some more efficiency into the system. In our 4th position, a police business analyst. As we have expanded our inventory and asset picture in terms of IT software applications and also our hardware, it's important for us to have some support internally in order to ensure from a training standpoint, service standpoint, and a response standpoint, we're able to support our personnel that are operating 24/7 with software applications, et cetera. Radio program costs. As we continue to move forward, we're adding, replacing some of our radios with some state-of-the-art radios that will enable our folks that if they go out of service of the RWC towers, they'll be able to access to cell service, if you will, in order to stay consistent and continuous. In addition to that, we have some fees that will go towards the RWC regional cost structure. Personnel adjustments, we've made a few adjustments to line level personnel and elevated them into supervisory positions because of the added responsibilities and the fact that they have additional personnel in their teams. We're now going to bring somebody within each of those groups and elevate them to a supervisor to ensure span of control for our leadership is consistent. With that, I've also added two commander positions that we are double filling. We have kind of flatlined or flattened out our command structure in order to provide a better response and a better overall leadership picture and mentorship model for our department. Aviation unit, we're at 1.1. This includes some training, both local and out of state. And then helicopter repair and maintenance costs about $790 out of that, and then additional requests for fuel. Booking area renovation, as you know, we do arrest people and we have to bring them to the station. In order to process them, our booking area has been around for 20 plus years. It's in dire need of a renovation. And then wellness equipment and training. Wellness, employee wellness, making sure we're taking care of our folks so they can take care of our citizens is one of my paramount principles. This will ensure that we're taking care of our employees to the best of our ability at this time, and that's what I have for you. Yeah, so just to touch on this real quick, like I said, I've asked for 4 positions this year. I recognize that with all the activities we have going on through the city, we as a department have some ownership to be good stewards within the city. And what we've done is we've identified these 4 positions that are civilian positions. Now, the civilian positions compared to sworn have a significant lower cost structure and pension responsibility. I believe these 4 positions right now for this year will develop or bring about a sense of efficiency that we have yet to experience, but will continue helping us move in that direction. I purposely didn't ask for any sworn positions this year because I think I had close to 26 vacancies when I started a couple years ago, and then we've added 32 courtesy of the city council. And so we've had a lot of open positions during my tenure here. We've revamped our hiring process. Our hiring manager has done a phenomenal job. I'm happy to report to you now that we have every single sworn position filled. Now, many of those positions are in training, but I'm confident that over the course of this next year, with full capacity as well as the finance office's willingness to give us 10 over-hire positions to continue to stay up to date with retirements that we have coming up, we're going to be in a very good position. We're already feeling the benefits of where we're at with our hiring process. So I think moving forward, we're going to see this model continue. We are going to continue to implement civilian positions in places where we think it makes sense, so we can use our officers where we need them, where their purpose and their responsibilities are required, and then in the areas where we can put them in support mechanisms or support positions, we will continue to look at civilian additions.
If I might, Chief, this slide, it demonstrates, if you look at, from 2024 to current 2027, a decrease in the ratio of sworn versus or a decrease in the ratio of sworn versus civilian, and that's intentional. As Chief mentioned, he wants to leverage the lower cost resource to take the load off of the sworn so that they can free them up to do what they're trained to do and go out and patrol. We'll pause here and see if there's any questions on the police side before we move to fire.
Councilor Finn?
I have a couple of questions. I want to start on this page. Nope, stay on that page if you don't mind.
This?
Nope, other one.
Oh, this one.
That one. Yep. Freeze, mister.
Freeze.
Can we, or maybe confirm the numbers? I thought, I was under the impression that we had actually added more sworn FTEs between 2024 and 2027. More like 30, if memory serves me correctly. Is that just maybe a typo in there, or am I misinformed or off track?
I think he's.
You don't have-
I think you're specifically. We had a lot of vacancies, so I think that's where that's the difference is the vacancies and filling those vacancies throughout that process.
You don't have to answer right now. You can get
We'll
back.
get
to
we'll
just
get you a
Yeah,
response.
just a question on there. I also want to get a little clarification on the aviation unit. There's a 1.1 supplemental, I believe, correct? Correct. And when I looked at the budget, I'm trying to get back to it, I saw that the budget itself for the aviation unit was down this year over the previous budget. So when I looked at the 2027 budget, it shows 2.5 for the aviation unit. 2026 budget was 2.8. I'm trying to wrap my head around the additional supplemental versus an actual decrease year over year on budget. And if that is kind of too big of a fish to fry right now, we can talk about it later, but it is something that kind of stuck in my head.
Okay.
And then the other one was, I just had the general question of the additional helicopter that is in the budget, I believe, is in the budget. The additional costs associated with that sitting and the plan for that. Is it truly a spare that when the other one is in for maintenance, or it's not operating? So in other words, the operating costs for the second one would be limited to the fixed costs associated with having that asset, such as insurance. First one that pops into my mind.
Correct.
Right? Kind of the breakdown on the costs of that. I would be looking for that as we move into the budgetary process a little bit more. Don't have to answer it now, but it's something that I didn't get out of this. And if you have it now, that's great. If not, I can wait.
I'll answer what I can.
That would be fantastic.
Mayor Beck, Vice Mayor Finn. So the 1.1 supplemental it's inclusive of the 2.5. You saw a reduction from the 2.8 plus to 2.5. That's because we realized that some of the monies that we had carried over from the year before, at this point, we don't need we're feeling pretty comfortable with where we're at, but we think 2.5 is going to be a reasonable number for us. We're still trying to figure out what that baseline is. Yeah. That was an estimation for 2026. So I think it's like a 9% or 3%, a 9% decrease. So, but I could get you more details into exactly what that is.
That'd be great.
And then as far as the second helicopter, we have somewhat of a fixed cost for the maintenance, et cetera, from the maintenance program. Fuel will be the expenditure of fuel will be based on a deployment model. So regardless of which helicopter we have, we're going to have a fairly consistent fuel expenditure. But the maintenance cost, and again, I'll get back to you with more details on this. The maintenance cost for the helicopter with the second helicopter will be spread out. So we won't have to go through those routine service, expensive services as frequent, because we'll be able to share the workload.
So the maintenance cost per operating hour would be the same. It would just be spread over two assets as opposed to
Correct.
only one asset.
Correct.
Completely understand that side. Okay.
Thank you, Mayor and Vice Mayor. The other thing to note is from an operating perspective is our staffing. A lot of the operating costs transferred from other parts of the organization because our pilot was already an internal employee, and so we moved his cost into the aviation unit, and it was basically to capture the cost of the aviation unit. And so, as Chief mentioned, 2026 we took a stab at what it would be, and then we started moving costs over into this line item so that we could understand really what the aviation unit is costing, and so we overshot it in 2026. We think that the 2027 ask is more realistic.
Okay. Thank you. And then just one more comment. You made a comment about over hiring, that we're fully staffed. We have the positions all filled and we're over hiring. I think you said by 10. That, in my mind, that's fantastic. That's exactly what we should be doing so that we don't have vacancies that pop up and are open due to somebody transfers, somebody, what have you. I'm a big supporter of that. So I appreciate you mentioning that we're doing that.
And Mayor Beck, Vice Mayor Finn, for us, it takes almost a year to train an employee. Right. And so I have 2 employees that are going to be retiring here in the next month, sworn. And so it's good to know that we're in a position we're at. So, because I anticipate we'll probably have a couple other retirements.
Yeah, that's great to hear.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you.
that's all I got, Mayor.
Councilor Bullock.
You mentioned the previous slide, don't need to go back to it, about new radios, upgrading radios, and that makes sense. You have to replace them or upgrade them. Does Peoria participate in the FirstNet, First Responders Communication System? Nationwide system, just out of curiosity. Learned about that in Washington last week.
Mayor and Mayor Pro Tem. We have a portion of our devices that are on AT&T's FirstNet, and then a portion that's on Verizon. So that we can have a diverse portfolio, if you will. We talked about water and that, but from a communications standpoint, that's important. Also, if you put all your eggs in a basket and have an outage, it can affect us. And so, yeah, we do have. I believe our MDTs
Yeah. So
are FirstNet,
they're all Verizon.
Verizon, and then okay. So we do participate in FirstNet, and we do have some devices that are on FirstNet, but it's not 100%.
Okay, I was just curious when I saw the total amount, because I learned about that last week. Of course, that's necessary. I just want to make sure that we're at least part of it, we're funding it correctly, and we're, again, resourcing our officers correctly, and on the fire side as well, to have full access to FirstNet. So thank you.
Right, when FirstNet first came to the forefront, it was it was about providing prioritization to public safety and that, from a voice and data perspective. But now you've got Verizon that does the same prioritization, and you've got T-Mobile that does similar prioritization. So we're in a pretty good place today.
Thank you.
All right, this brings us to fire and medical. So with fire, we've got 285 FTEs, a mix of sworn and civilian. Again, our budget is $66.2 million funded through general fund and user fees. 83% of the budget are personnel costs. We've got 10% contractual, 4% commodities, and 3% that are capital. And with that, Chief Bernard, if you'll take us through your supplementals.
Sure will. Thank you, Mr. Cartwright. Mayor, Council, how are you? Here are some notable items. We thank you for your consideration on this stuff. The big ticket ones, the new hires, 15 additional rovers, and that'll be 5 per shift. That'll help fill the vacancies that are created every day from vacation, sick time, injuries, military leave, maternity leave, all that stuff that's going on. What's that? The fire engine pumper will replace a reserve truck that the engine 1932 at a station on Thunderbird is at. It'll replace that truck. About a 2-year build for that. It's still a long time, long wait for that stuff. And we have a fire prevention inspector that we're going to add. With all the work going on at AMCOR, we're going to have one inspector pretty much full-time at AMCOR for a while, so this will help get some of the inspections done, and that should be cost recovery from all the fees collected through them. Our peak time rescue is one that we put up during the daytime when traffic, there's a lot of transportation. And part of that is to meet the criteria through the Department of Health Services that we have to respond within 10 minutes, 90% of the time. So having that additional peak time rescue helps with that metric. Image Trend is a software program that we're going to implement with the EMS side, the medical side. And Image Trend will also be able to report our required reporting that's at the federal level, the nearest stuff, National Emergency Response Information System. And that stuff's required for federal grant stuff. If you got to be compliant in that, so that'll help us be compliant with that and make things, hopefully get some more money. The gurneys are the cots for the ambulances. They're on a replacement cycle, they're end of life, so we need to get those replaced. And then the recharge room is the wellness program that we have. We have one of these rooms at Station 191 right now, and it's science-based recovery. It has red light therapy, it has infrared sauna and the cold plunge. The firefighters go through a cycle And we're getting really great feedback from the firefighters that it's helping a lot. It's good for mental health, recovery, inflammation. So a lot of good stuff going on. We want to get those to the other firefighters, and it's been very, very, very positive for the folks. That's kind of an overview of the highlight stuff.
I'd like to point out with the 15 new hires or firefighters that we're hiring, Chief has applied for a SAFER grant. And to the extent that that's approved, these 15 firefighters would be paid for the next 3 years. And so that 1.9 million will be deferred for 3 years. Any questions on fire?
I think we're all good. Thank you.
Everyone's waiting to get to our presiding judge. He's got some. With that, brings us to our municipal court. So the court has 25 FTEs with a budget of $4.2 million funded through general fund and user fees. 80% of that budget's personnel, 19% contractual, and 1% commodity. With that, Judge Tatz.
All right, thank you. Good evening, Mayor, Council. Save the best for last. I appreciate that. So we're going to talk about just a few positions that we're very grateful that the Budget and City Manager's Office is supporting. We hope that you'll approve. We've seen a substantial increase in filings, and in some of the areas, it's civil. It's civil traffic cases, it's civil code enforcement cases, and it's protective order cases. Every time one of those goes to a hearing, a judicial officer has to handle that. So we're asking to have a full-time commissioner come aboard that would be assigned to handle those civil matters, the civil traffic, the code enforcement, and the protective orders. We're already doing that through a revolving door of judge pro tems. This will give consistency to the code enforcement officers, to the police officers handling the civil traffic cases. They'll be able to become experts, if you will, in those areas, go to training in those areas, and it's just, to me, it makes a lot of sense just to have one person overseeing all of those operations. So that is what the request for the commissioner is. We're already paying for a substantial amount of this every year in pro tem funds. This will allow us to reduce the pro tem funds and use it for a full-time position. The lead judicial assistant and judicial assistant are obviously staff members to help us. Again, with the increase in filings, we looked at some other jurisdictions. A couple jurisdictions right now with less filings than us have more people helping. We currently have those on contract position for the year. This allows them to become full-time and help us again to get some consistency. It's kind of hard to recruit sometimes when you're telling someone you may only have a job for 6 to 9 months. Now we can recruit people and tell them they've got a job here for a while. And then finally, the court interpreter service operation increase is just a 10% increase. It says 53,000. We already have 48,000 in the budget. It's just an increase again to cover the demand. So those are our requests.
Any questions there? So we talked about the DUI prosecutor earlier. So do you see a rise in DUIs, or is it I mean, where is that kind of coming from?
Mayor, council members, I don't know that we've seen a rise in the filings all across the board.
Right.
In terms of the extra prosecutor, we're certainly seeing more cases go to trial. We're in the middle of a jury trial right now that started today and will complete tomorrow on a DUI case. We're doing more DUI trials. I think they're prosecuting those more than they were before. They've heard, I think, that from the city that they want those cases prosecuted. Some of the ones that might be a little bit tougher to get convictions on, and so they're taking those to trial more. So we have seen that.
Just
change.
that's what I was hoping. Sure. That's where that was coming from. So I know we're our responses and our that we're booking a lot more from that perspective too, right? So yeah, so very appreciative. Thank you.
Mayor Council, this is a new topic that will be in the budget. We'll leave it in the budget presentation each year. It was born out of a requirement inside of the participation contract that the city entered into when we acquired Pure Innovation Core 2 at auction back on August 27th. And that really was a profit share agreement that included a deliverable for an annual business plan. And it's a good discipline. As we're learning as an organization, we are involved in development all the time, but in this case, we're the actual developer. So there's been a lot of learning along the way. So we're going to highlight a couple things. Kevin's going to walk you through some financials, but if I was to leave you with the headlines, Core 2 development is rapidly moving. If you haven't been out there, I encourage you to get out there. Run the roadways, just take a look. Our PMs are executing, our project managers are executing on the projects that are in front of them. Sales are starting. I appreciate and was glad to celebrate with you last night the sale of the first piece of property to Opus, which is after the Amcor land swap. And in that picture last night, you would have seen an image of Amcor's construction progress. Foundations are rolling. I believe the first steel package arrives on May 4th, and the steel will start to go vertical the week of May 16th. So you're going to see things rolling. Projects are really progressing. In that, from just our business plan highlights, the PIC2 cash outlay is going to peak in FY27. So we're going to have our maximum cash outlay inside of this fiscal year. We will become cash positive by fiscal year 29, and Kevin will walk through that. Sale interest is strong, but we're focused on the development pace. We could sell all this land tomorrow. If we wanted to move it, we could move it tomorrow. The goal is we want to work with partners who want to move at a development pace, and so we're going to sell based on the rate of which they'll build things. We don't want people to land bank. We can do that. We hold it. We'll sell it for more. We're going to move it at the rate at which they can construct. Kevin and the finance team pulled off a $7 million win for us, which is to refinance the PIC. So in essence, they're moving through the full patent now. You approved that a couple of weeks ago. That's going to put a $7 million interest cost avoidance to our pocket, which is a fantastic thing. So the last two bullets here are just, again, annual report. We owed as state land 90 days before the fiscal year end. This is just an update of our business plan. We'll do this each year. It is important to note, though, that what we'll talk about in PIC2 development is only the costs associated with the development of PIC2. So if we have a project that goes in Core 1 and in Core 2, we're talking about the recovery of costs for Core 2 only. IGA-related recovery happens through subsequent auctions. So there is still cash outlay. It's just outside of this portion of the project. You saw this slide last night. Again, this is just an orientation. So for us, when we use and speak about projects, you'll hear us talk about, for example, parcel C3. That's the one that transacted to Opus last night. So we just something, and we could probably get to this to you electronically. So if somebody is to talk to you, this is how we refer to it. So you'll hear us call like parcel I, the triangle on the east side. That is a large piece. So just a way of acclamation. But I bring that up because in this next slide, we can highlight more of the sales pipeline. So a key part of our forecast, Kevin will go through in a minute. We'll talk about, we've already transacted to Amcor, 104 acres, and that total transaction has a value to us of $52 million. It's got reimbursement through several facets. Part of it is we'll sell property that we own in Vistancia to recoup some of that cost. You're going to see one of those transactions come to you on April 7th. We'll be bringing a purchase and sale agreement for the first piece of land selling in there. That money will come back into this business plan. Last night, you approved a purchase and sale agreement, a development agreement to Opus for parcel C3. So these are transactions that are done. Now we're just working through the processes of collecting the cash. But the first $60 million in, and how long we've been at this thing? 6 months? We're going to call ourselves overachievers. On the marketing side, we've got a couple of things going. We've got LOIs in place and committed. So the first one is APS. So if I was to jump back a slide, where parcel C3 is, so if you just go due north, you'll see I don't have my glasses on, proposed APS substation. So that is locked in. We're doing two things in that site. They're going to put a switch yard in. So they're going to pull 69 kVA power off the Dove Valley alignment. They're going to pull into the switch yard. That's going to provide power to Amcor. But the strategy there was to leave enough property to build a substation, which will bring 112 megawatts of power. That's a lot of power to cover for the Core 2, Core 3, and even some Core 1. So we'll transact that property to APS at 10 acres. Inside of the purchase and sale agreement you approved last night, there was the option parcel, which is parcel C2. It's about 12 acres of property, so that's committed. Parcel D, which is 67 acres due west of Amcor's, we are in the final throes of an LOI, so we have that set aside as well. We also have an LOI in hand, but we're negotiating because we want terms based on development, not on land sale, for the 200 acres. So we've got a very major player who said, we want to be with you, we want to develop with you. We're just trying to work out the kinks of what's the pace look like, because again, we're worried about returning jobs. We're worried about returning sales tax to the coffers. We're not worried about just transacting land. Again, we could go into a lot of stuff. We lifted this out of the CIP, so we didn't have to go through it in that particular portion, but there's a ton of stuff going out there. Design and construction. There's roadways and drainage and water line and sewer lines and reclaimed water lines. Fiber, undergrounding of power. We've got design going on for sewer lines running down into Core 1, lift stations down in Core 1. All in all, $140 million worth of projects, all in flight, all set to deliver in FY27. In fact, we will be driving on final paved roads probably in November of calendar year 26. Final project is set for May. That's the sewer line. That's May of 27. So all of this stuff is set to be delivered, and we're going to start rolling projects and sales from there. We'll highlight just one thing is that Cape Powers, under some direction from Kevin, did a really good job of even going after some grant dollars to bring back for reclaimed lines. So trying to look at recovering funds however we can, because if we recover funds through alternate means, it means that we can profit more off the sale of the property. Kevin?
All right. Well, kind of like the way this project is going, Manager Faust does all the work and I show up at the closing. And so I got the last slide here. And so I know it's a page full of numbers, but there's actually a story behind here. So let me tell that story by starting at the top with the green bar across there. You see those are cash inflow. Those are essentially our sales numbers. And you can see that despite, as Mike was saying, a lot of strong interest, we've been very cautious about our pace of sale, at least for cash flow purposes, and we've spread the sales. This isn't all the land. This is probably the majority of Pick 2 that we're selling across 5 years. So we're trying to take a steady sale rate in there, at least in our projections. If you come down a couple lines right above the yellow Pick 2 total expenses, that 157 million again spread across, those are the infrastructure expenditures. So we are going hot and heavy, and as he noted in one of his earlier slides, FY26 is the big year. This year is when we're spending the money and we are making progress on the infrastructure. We're really moving the needle on that. But when you get to total expenses there, you can see that that 94 million, of course, a big chunk of that is also finishing the purchase of all the land. That drives a big chunk of that as well. We're at $94 million in expenditures out. So that takes you then to the next yellow highlighted line there. And this is really the bottom line in many cases, is that this is the cash flow. So you can see that we are negative first year. Second year, we're at our worst position. Third year, we start to increment back. And then by 2029, we're cash positive. When you go out the rest of the spreadsheet to the right, you only have to show 5 years for the state land business plan. We project that this will make a net $50 million positive revenue that will be split between the city and state land, $25 million apiece. So this is a project that gets us economic development, gets us those jobs, it gets us the employment and industry, but it also does it at a net positive on the project. So again, looking very optimistic as we go forward, but again, also trying to be cautious and not saying this is going to happen in 1-2 years. This is a 5-year steady pace. So with that, any questions that you might have on the business plan? All right.
Brilliant. Thank you. So Mayor, coming up on the capital side, Chris, you're looking a little lonely there at the moment. So we are missing 2, and we may have to pitch an audible here. Okay, so Dan Nissen is going to present on streets, and this is the point where Dan jumps out of the closet and surprises us and says, "I'm here." He should be joined by Ed Striffler, who clearly is not here, and Chris Stern, who is going to address the water. Let's do this. Why don't you? I don't want to stop. So let's put the capital slides up. They're up? Okay, we're going to throw an audible. Somebody want to find those guys? Okay. Here goes nothing.
I'm ready.
Let's roll it.
All right.
Let's do it.
If this was Thursday, the Wildcats tip at 6:45 tomorrow night, and it is important because last time we had to talk Cats, they lost while we were in one of these things, and I'm not playing it this year. Man, we're going to win. We're going to win it all. All right. I got my back to the crowd, so if Dan comes in, you guys cheer. I'm going to get up, move over. Dan's going to slide in. You right? Okay, so I'm Dan for the next couple of slides. Ed's going to slide in. Chris Stern's going to pick up water and wastewater. So we're going to start with the first topic. We're going to move like we have in the past. We're going to go topic by topic. So we're going to go drainage. Soon as drainage wraps, we're going to go streets and traffic signals. Then we're going to drop. So at each stop, you can ask questions, and then we'll jump right into the next topic. Square?
We'll cheer when you come.
Okay, you cheer. Okay.
You're good.
All right, so on the drainage side of things, only 2 projects we're going to highlight. So we have a lot of drainage things going on, but in particular, we have a mix of, I'll say, amenities and drainage basins. So we'll have parks that are adjacent to drainage basins. Sometimes if you don't stay on top of the maintenance or erosion gets bad, we've got to go back in and do work. So there's 2 very specific projects, and if these are in your district, you'll know in Willow and Ironwood. When it rains, when challenges happen, we hear it from the community. So we have 2 specific projects, one at Fletcher Heights, one at Deer Village, going back in. All right. I'm out. You can go to the next slide, Dan.
Our apologies. Nice try.
We knew Chris.
We got this one. Go to the next one.
All right.
Just run over here.
First of all,
Prior discussion, that there was a break that we were timing to.
yeah, your break went faster than we thought. So we apologize for that. Remember us at evaluation time, please.
So here's what I sent to
Let's see.
If I may, while Dan catches his breath on the way over, we said, Mike could do our whole presentation. He's that gifted. He just wanted that opportunity.
Was that?
So the second drainage project that we have is the neighborhood drainage program. And that was approved by council in 2015 to allow staff to address minor drainage problems in the neighborhoods. It's been a citywide implemented program, and it's been very successful for us. Forgot that.
Hey, thank you all.
Any questions on the drainage? Okay. Next, we have the streets. First one up is the Vistancia Lone Mountain Parkway intersection improvements, and This is actually the design and construction of the roundabout. This project has been progressing rapidly. The design is scheduled to be completed in May of this year. We're working with Vistancia Maintenance Corporation to acquire 2 small pieces of right-of-way and some temporary construction easements. We plan to have the land acquired by May of this year. Now, the construction is the piece of this that has moved. And construction is currently scheduled for May, the week of May 25th, right after school dismisses for the year. And it's to be substantially complete and open to traffic by August 2nd, right before school starts, before the calendar year. This project is going to be substantially complete and open to traffic, but we have some long lead items, streetlights, and flasher signals that won't be delivered until September. So we'll have to be back out here doing some construction for installation of those last few items. The other item that I wanted to bring to your attention is during construction, this intersection will be closed to traffic. Traffic will be detoured through Westland Road and El Mirage Road. So that notification will be going out to the general public here very soon. 67th Avenue, Pinnacle Peak to Happy Valley. This is a roadway and a drainage project, and it's been under construction for a year. Currently, the city needs to acquire 1 more drainage easement from the city of Phoenix to allow us to build a diversion structure. You see it on the upper right corner of the exhibit. Construction will continue for another about a year and a half. So summer of 27, it was when we're scheduled to be completed. I did want to bring to your attention that with this project, the construction cost is $49 million. In 2021, the city was able to secure $8 million from the state and another $23 million from Flood Control District to help offset those costs. Vistancia Happy Valley Road intersection realignment. This project is moving along rather slowly at this point, but we're going to get back on schedule. The design and concept report are currently at 60% design. We delayed the project so that we could look at the north leg at the intersection of Vistancia Boulevard. We actually changed how we're going to do that design. We were going to design it to an arterial cross-section, 4 lanes, but we are, after careful consideration and looking at traffic volumes, we're going to build it to the 6-lane parkway cross-section so we don't have to come back into this intersection in the future and widen it and cause disruption to the traffic. So now design is scheduled to be completed by August of this year. We're coordinating land acquisition with Arizona State Land Department, 2 private owners, and Maricopa County. Land acquisition is supposed to be completed by August of this year, with the exception of State Land Department. We don't know the auction for that property, so we will turn everything else over to the developer right-of-way wise as we finish up. And then the last twist to this project is the construction phase. When we finish the construction documents, we will turn those documents over to the successful bidder for parcel Q of the North Peoria Gateway, which is located east and north of Happy Valley Road. That developer, that successful bidder, will then be responsible to build the intersection improvements. Pardon me from running over here. The next intersection, Joe Max Road, Dysart to 126th. This project is at 60% design. We just received a letter of authorization from State Land to go do our geotech investigation and potholing, so we'll be able to move into 90% design now. We are working with Arizona State Land Department to acquire right-of-way. They anticipate an auction for this right-of-way to be in August of this year and turn over the construction documents and the land to the city by October. If that stays on schedule, then we could start construction later in the calendar year. El Mirage Road, Loop 303 to Jomax Road. If you notice, the majority of this roadway is located in Maricopa County. The city has taken the lead on this project. This is a very important link to our transportation area, our transportation system in this area. It'll provide another link for Restoncia to access out of the area. Plus, if you've been out there, you see there's a lot of traffic that we get regionally from City of Surprise and the Maricopa County residents. The design concept report and environmental assessment for this project were completed in January of this year. Design starts April 9th, and we expect to be in design for a year. And then construction starts after that for 18 months. So by summer of 2029, construction is scheduled to be completed. We did want to point out that this is a federally funded project. The city is not certified to administer a federally funded project, so ADOT is our agent on this project, and they will coordinate with FHWA. One of the key operational functions for the Public Works Department is to provide proactive street maintenance, and the pavement preservation program and rehabilitation program allow the Public Works Department to do that. You can see they have $6.5 million in the preservation program and another $14.5 million in the rehab program. And you can see they have one or two projects that they plan to finish next year. The American with Disabilities Act requires any street that's altered, that is through a rehabilitation program or resurfacing, to have the ADA improvements either added or upgraded. This program allows Public Works to address those ADA projects as they are simultaneously working their preservation projects and their rehab projects. Public Works Department has requested a new program for Lake Pleasant area rural road maintenance. They've identified approximately 9 miles of non-residential rural roads in the area, and you can see the 4 proposed roadways that they have included in this program. School flashing signals. The Traffic Division recently installed 4 school flashing signals at the 4 locations shown on the slide. The Traffic Division is currently conducting an effectiveness study. Once they complete that study, they will determine what locations will be identified for FY27. The Deer Valley Road intersection modifications. This is a new project. It's been advanced in the CIP. This project will add a new southbound to westbound right turn lane at 83rd and Deer Valley. It'll modify the traffic signal, acquire adequate right-of-way. And if you've ever driven by there, you see that west side of the street is full of utilities. So we have a substantial amount of utility coordination to do on that project. Design is funded in FY27, land acquisition in 28, and construction in 29.
Mayor, Council, any questions on those projects?
Yes, please.
Councilor Bullock.
Thank you, Mayor. From an understanding point of view, in the 3 or 4 slides back, you had different roads you're doing. You don't have to go back. Micro seal, slurry seal.
Yes.
From a budgeting point of view, why one over the other? I would assume I'm not in that kind of business. I have no idea what's involved. why one over the other? Is there budget issues, budget constraints, or what dictates what we spend money on, whether it's micro seal or slurry seal to fix our roads or repair our roads?
I'll see if Rhonda's in the audience, but I think it depends on the condition of the pavement, how they make their decision.
She can go there.
Yeah, Dan pretty much nailed it. It's, when we do a preservation, it's to maintain the road that's maybe newer, but you want to extend it out. And a good analogy to consider that is when you buy a car, you want to do the oil changes to maintain the engine for the long life. And that's kind of how we look at with preservation. So if you do some of the softer preservation treatments, then the intent is we won't have to do a big mill and overlay sooner, rather we can extend out the life of the road overall.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Did you not bring in maps?
Councilor Edwards.
Thank you, Mayor. Dan, I have a couple of questions for you. So you brought up 83rd and Deer Valley. CIP 152 is 107th and Deer Valley. I know that it's out quite a ways as far as in the budget. Is there a possibility of bringing that farther, closer in year-wise, rather than having, I think it's out like 5, 6 years now?
We can look at that for FY '28.
And then also on CIP 153, which is 107th, just north of Williams, that's
Yes.
that 2 lanes that goes into the county.
Yes.
A lot of traffic going there. Can we look at, I think it's actually in 32, bringing it up so that we can get some additional road coverage up there?
Okay, yes, sir, we'll look at those.
Mayor, Councilmember Edwards, specifically on the 107 Williams to Hatfield, we will note that's a county road. So I think part of the dynamic there is our staff tried to pull it in, have worked with the county. I think the earliest the county said they would contribute to that is in that 30 to 31 timeline, so it's somewhat pacing it. So we can evaluate that and then come back to the council with the implications if we were to fund direct, or whatever we can do to talk to peers at the county, both the staff side and on the elected side, to see if that can be influenced.
Perfect. And then the last thing I had is, we brought this up in our study session some time ago about Peoria lifestyle, and we're talking about connectivity. And so I noticed that you had some 88 projects in there. I want to address the lack of some sidewalks in not only my district, but I think across the city, where we have areas where development was planning on putting in sidewalks but didn't. And I think it should be our responsibility to go in and fill in some of those gaps so that we have connectivity.
Yeah, Mayor, Councilmember Edwards, thank you for that. And it is something that came up on the January 28th retreat. We're cognizant of that. We just don't have a solid answer at the moment. And one of the reasons we don't is I think the team's got a lot of energy and effort put behind resurfacing of the new river trail. So there's a project that's going to kick off here, I'd say in the next couple of months, which is going to address surface condition of the new river trail from Northern all the way up to 75th and Paradise Lane. Various treatments depending on the particular area. As we're working through that, we will task the team to go back and evaluate on two fronts. Number one, we know there's gaps in Pines, specifically in some areas where there's sidewalk projects. How can we pull them forward? What does the funding profile look like for that? We know there's a specific project, Pinnacle Peak, 83rd to 79, that was on the docket. But then that also offers an opportunity for us to up-level it one bit inside of that Peoria lifestyle discussion, which is how do we look at that broader walkability throughout the city, not just the trail system, but how does the sidewalk systems connect to the trail systems? How do we look for those areas, especially in the southwest part of, primarily in Pine, where we don't have a connection to a river corridor and a walking system? How do we get those sidewalks in? So we are a bit behind from the request that the council made on January 28th. We're cognizant of it. Just give us a handful of weeks and we'll come back with some written communication on what the strategy is behind that. We are fully aware, and it is important to us to make sure we're fulfilling that obligation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Parks, yes.
So what Rhonda's handing out now is essentially a visualization of that very busy slide. So there was dozens of projects listed on the pavement preservation and rehabilitation slide, 91 miles in totality being addressed. So this is a visualization which will include projects by district.
Thank you.
So you can get a very good feel as to what projects are in your particular districts. Because that's a great program. We spend about $21 to $22 million a year on that. So there's a lot of moving pieces going on. Should be the same thing. So if there's no other questions, Mayor, on streets and signals, we will kick it over to Ed Striffler, who's going to talk about operational facilities now.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Mayor and Council, for the opportunity to not only speak about operational facilities, but I'll speak to you about parks and public safety in the CIP this evening as well. I'm going to start with the Fleet Building Project. This project's in its final year of construction after working very hard and successfully extracting $5 million from the total cost of construction of this project. We can now see the finish line. You see an image in the upper right. This was just taken 2 days ago, what the inside of the fleet bays look like. It's pretty exciting. We'll be endeavoring to get staff all moved in at the end of April so that we can begin the second phase, which entails demolishing the previous fleet building and completing out the final parking phase of the project. This new state-of-the-art fleet maintenance facility significantly improves our fleet maintenance working conditions, and as you can see in the image, the amount of space that they get to work within. The facility is designed to be able to double in size in the future should our needs grow. In May, I understand you will have the opportunity to come and experience the work environment in a ribbon cutting ceremony in that very location that you see there in the upper right, in the cool of air conditioning, which is very different than the previous facility. Back in October, we brought the plan for the schoolhouse renovation to you for conversation, and it was met with great excitement. So we're happy to report that this month we inked the final construction contract. We're completing our last round of permit pursuits on this project, and we have a start of construction scheduled for mid-March. Our schedule is aligned to complete the construction in October and transition into operations in November. In 2025, we activated the front, what we call the front yard of City Hall, which I think was a success. But when we did so, we had an opportunity to kind of realize some of the shortcomings of the planters that surround the City Hall architecture, the planters in the amphitheater. We can see that 30 some odd years into this campus life, those parts of our most important municipal facilities are reaching a point of failure. So money has been entered into the capital program for an assessment of the totality of all these planters, likely, realistically, having to empty many of them of their dirt, make repairs, waterproofing, irrigation replacements, those kinds of things. Rest assured that we won't act until we plan, and we'll bring those pieces of information forward so that you can understand what this might entail. Building equipment, refurbishment, replacement, public safety building needs, these are grouped together in this slide. These projects are operational in nature, but the magnitude of the costs together rise to this level of capital reinvestment in our facilities. The buildings touched with these funds in fiscal year 27 will include the public safety, the Peoria Center for the Performing Arts, Greenway and Butler water treatment plants, main library, City Hall, largely entail HVAC and lighting type replacements. These systems do fade over time and need refurbishment. And in the case of the theater, there's a very important building lighting panel related to the building operation, not theatrical, that is needing to be replaced. On the public safety building side, buildings that will touch with these 27 funds include Fire Station 3, 5, and 6, the Pinnacle Peak Public Safety Campus, and the building that you're in, the Public Safety Admin Building. Types of improvements include replacements of gate operators, HVAC replacements, and phase 2 of our very important chiller plant that's located in this building. We spoke of public safety. I'm excited to bring to you some information about projects that we have in play and that we have planned in the coming year and years. So I'll move into those. The multipurpose police facility was a facility that the city acquired about a year and a half ago. After some study due diligence, the city is embarking on a multi-phase series of improvements. That will expand this facility's value for tactical training of our police officers, specialty vehicle storage and readiness, getting those high-value assets like command vehicles, SWAT vehicles, et cetera, out of the harsh elements, keeping them plugged in, keeping them data ready and ready to deploy at a moment's notice. Evidence storage. This is a two-pronged approach, the first of which will be the outdoor evidence, where we largely impound wrecked vehicles, evidence vehicles. We have that function at the Municipal Operations Center, but it is stacked to the gills. And with the new fleet facility and some belt tightening in that area, they needed a reliever. This is that location. Once that phase is complete, we'll assess the resources. We'll come back in and look at interior improvements to the building for long-term, we'll say indoor evidence storage. That could include freezers, coolers, dry stacked, to create additional capacity in this facility downstairs. The Pinnacle Peak Public Safety Campus phased expansion is really a really long name for a 9,000 square foot addition to the Patrol Services building that, if you can believe it, is almost 10 years old since we built it. That building was designed to be expanded as the city grew north and realized the needs for additional officers. We have arrived at that point, thus we're undertaking the project thanks to your approval in the prior CIP. This facility will add about another 50 police staff, and we think it's likely that it'll be about a 50-50 split between opportunities to expand purely new officers in this area to serve north, and also to potentially move some of the public safety operations that exist in this building to spread them out and move them to Mid-City, thus creating the opportunity to have some expansion down here. So we think we have both parts of the city covered with our planning here. Fire station number 8, many of you, council, were, at the groundbreaking ceremony in North Estancia. The image in the upper right is already out of date. They are moving ground at a rapid pace, and very soon we will be moving into the building pad and the building foundations and just maintaining a really strong, forceful cadence on our schedule to get this open in fiscal year 27. Fire station number 12, a 2-bay infill station. I'm in my 24th year here and didn't think that I needed to learn to count past 10. Apparently, I need to. The fire department has been studying a great deal of response calls in the lower portion of the city that are covered by Fire Station 1 up on Peoria Avenue, Fire Station 4 over at 99th and Olive, and Fire Station 3 up at 83rd and Amelia Zola. The end game here is to try to reduce response times from these 3 stations to an area that has a high volume of call. As you are certainly aware, when a situation is life-threatening, minutes and seconds count. You can see just an excerpt of some of the modeling that they have been undertaking to look at what are the opportunities and where are the opportunities to position a smaller 2-bay infill station to gain a couple of minutes of response time for our Peoria residents. I'm going to transition to Parks and Recreation, and I'm going to start with some exciting news about new parks being delivered in fiscal year 27. There are 3 new parks coming online in the northern part of the city. All 3 parks are constructed by developers with city staff working alongside to make sure that they meet our needs and standards for our northern Peoria residents. None of these parks required the use of the general fund or general obligation bonds, which is a positive. Mystic and Discovery Parks are anticipated to come online in summer of 2026. That's not very far away. And Alora Vita is anticipated to come online in spring of 27. Because these are developer-built projects, you do not see the CIP funding amounts in the lower left corner of the slide, but you do see references to new entries in the fiscal 27-year operating budget associated with these parks coming online. So Parks and Rec Director Chris Calcaterra, I believe before we arrived, handed out a handout that will be relevant to the next 2 slides that we're going to be talking about for types of parks improvements that are likely in your districts. There's a lot behind the scenes, many parks of different and many different types of improvements. So we thought that that best captured what your interest may be to understand what was going on in your neighborhood for your constituents. We're a city blessed to have many parks, and with such comes the need to keep track of their condition, need for improvements. Parks has prepped a Parks Condition Index, and those with the lowest score on this index rose to the top for refresh efforts. Refresh efforts can include anything from landscape replacements, painting, restroom rehabs, replacement of park furnishings, all the way up to full playground and shade replacements, or even full court replacements or significant rehab. Again, I'll refer you to the handout for these types of improvements. And there is a related project, a sister project to this one, very similar in its focus, but a little less about the amenities that our citizens directly engage, right? Not the playground, not the, the tot turf, those kinds of things, but rather things like light poles, ramadas, and other things that are infrastructure related that keep our parks safe at night and keep hazards away from small hands. So in the slides that you see, these are some examples of some of the decay in our structures. Parks shared that we have nearly 1,500 light poles in our parks, 40 sports courts, and about 140 ramadas. So in FY27, they're going to be busy taking a look at which ones need high priority replacement, and likely continuing to move through in successor years to keep up with that. Mountain open space, mountain trail improvements, river ecosystems. This project has a broad umbrella under which we find everything from flow channel maintenance in Skunk Creek or other places under an IGA with Maricopa County, down to the scale of trail signage that our trail users use to navigate up and down our appreciated open space. This project could be used for archaeological investigations, for trail alignment studies, or in this case, as you see in the image, even trail construction. We have new development occurring in the northern Vistancia and Lake Pleasant Heights developments, where this capital funding is absolutely essential to our growth of open space and rollout of open space amenities up in that area as well. In the next couple of slides, I'm going to transition away from the more typical flatland type park improvements and open space into talking about some park building type improvements. Like our neighborhood parks, our Parks and Rec folks manage our community parks, and many of our community parks have building assets in them. And these are substantially larger in scale, and the buildings introduce all of these building systems like we have in these buildings into the aging equation. We also have bridge structures at Rio Vista, both on your entry into the park as you cross the water, and then also crossing Skunk Creek into the park from the west, that are in an age where they need age-related maintenance. So on the fit and fun side of the equation, we'll see some new different types of fitness equipment enter the rec center. Now at 20 years old, we need to take a look at the cost-benefit analysis of upgrading the old quartz lights on all of those sports fields to newer LED lights as a measure of driving down our operating cost. On the bridge structures, we have some painting and aesthetic maintenance to do to undertake and to maintain those very positive first impressions for an older park like Rio. Sports complex improvements is really a container for multiple projects. I'll tell you about several. It's an umbrella project for the first base seating enhancements in the stadium, team store expansion, Mariners clubhouse small modifications, Padres practice field modifications, and other miscellaneous renovations to either the stadium or the practice fields to suit the city and the teams. Shown on this slide is an exciting new seating option that's in development to replace the good old-fashioned aluminum first base bleacher seats. These improvements will enhance the quality of traditional fixed seating, extend the important shade trellis, we all need shade, down the first base line, and expand our group event and bar offerings to our patrons. The first base improvements that you see here in these images are planned to start construction soon after spring training 2027. AV team, when I reach the end slide, I may need an assist because I'm not 100% sure if this will activate the last slide. You'll know when we get there. This is the Rio Vista Recreation Center at Paloma Community Park. Back after the council approved the fiscal year 26 CIP, you set staff on a mission to look at the feasibility and study the size, aspirations, location, et cetera, for a recreation center seated inside Paloma Community Park. I was part of the park inception, phase one, and we had pre-identified and we even had pre-plumbed much of our necessary infrastructure to the location that you see in the image on your screen, which, if you're familiar with Paloma Community Park, as you come up the entry road and you round, so to speak, the bend at the tip of the dike structure, you're presented with that magnificent view of the park, the vast open space to the north toward the CAP. The rec center that you see in the image is located right at that location for quite a number of reasons, and we got some exciting images to show you. I'll just talk a little bit about the types of amenities that came forward for incorporation. Important to us was to make sure that we had equity between north and south, planting a rec facility similar to Rio Vista at Paloma. So much of what you hear me talk about will sound familiar. Staff conducted 3 public input sessions. We obtained meaningful input from residents on what was important to them. In addition, we foresee an opportunity to leverage an interest in community meeting space like we have at Rio Vista. And if we elevate the architecture and the interiors beyond looking just like a rec center, we believe we have a secondary opportunity, and that is to look north to that Peoria Innovation Core, that new employment center, and possibly create additional rental revenue through, corporate meeting locations, et cetera, kind of doubling up with our own community spaces. So we're excited to share that opportunity. The images on the screen, the top 2 represent the types of amenities that you would see on the first floor. Like Rio Vista, you would enter the facility, and we've largely separated the amenities into 2 wings. The wings that you see kind of in the peachy color, that would be your traditional recreation amenities. 3-court gym, locker rooms, free weights area. And then on the first floor, kind of opposite wing, again, similar to Rio, you have large conference space, intermediate conference rooms, private boardroom opportunities, catering level kitchen to be able to serve these events. Second floor, it gets fun. We have the walking track up over the gym. We have the dance type class studios, et cetera, the cardio. And this is really where you can engage those magnificent views of West Wing Mountain, from the walking track, peek out the gym, and look out over all the activities that are occurring in the park. So with a rec center at the base of a mountain comes challenges, and we have endeavored to give you a glimpse of what the possibilities are for a rec center. This particular architecture draws some inspiration from the mountain forms themselves. The large sloping roofs are intended to kind of make a nod toward West Wing Beyond. The materials that you see are representative of the types of materials that we already have in the buildings. And just some glimpses of outdoor courtyard spaces and gauges of the natural desert landscape, views out to the north. We think it is going to be pretty magnificent. So at this time, if you could please press the play button. Uh-oh, that didn't work. It should, there we go, pops up at the bottom. We've got a small video for you, and while the video is running, before we can move into a large design phase investment, there must be a larger conversation about bond capacity and the pursuit of future capital funding to support what is estimated to be a $65 million construction cost in the future. $65 million total capital cost. We realize that you're seeing this, Council, for the first time in a very abbreviated fashion. Staff's committed to bringing this to you in a special conversation where we can walk you through the conversations, the building program, the types of features that the public and the staff were interested in. This is just simply to let you know that we've been working on it. We heard you, and we're kind of excited by its potential. This video will conclude my portion. I think it's about to wind up right here. I'll be happy to answer any questions you have before Mr. Stern takes over and talks about utilities. Thank you. Give that.
Any questions, council? No, none. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, good evening, Mayor, council members, City Manager Faust. The first,
Sorry.
is it going or not? Oh, it's not going. All right, there we go. Okay. All right, there it goes. Okay, the first two projects in my presentation represent part of the city's long-term strategy to beneficially reuse all reclaimed water produced at our 3 wastewater treatment facilities. Reclaim Project 2 builds a pipeline that connects the Beardsley and Vistancia reclaimed water systems. This project allows us to supplement the high demands of Vistancia in the summer months, which will eliminate our dependence on irrigation water from the Cap Canal. Another benefit is giving us the ability to move water back to the Beardsley system in the winter months instead of essentially dumping that water down the wash. The next project is Reclaim Project 3. This project builds a pipeline and 2 new reservoirs and booster pump stations, and this will connect the Butler and the Beardsley reclaimed water systems. We currently send our reclaimed water from the Butler WRF to an underground storage facility in Glendale, which means we cannot physically access that water. It just gives us paper water. What this project does is it allows us to keep our reclaimed water within the city limits and recover that water for future use. All right. So last fall, the city completed a 6 MGD expansion of the Beardsley Water Reclamation Facility, and development in and around the Peoria Innovation Core has accelerated the need for the next expansion. So what we're currently doing is we're conducting a study to determine the requirements to expand the facility to a capacity of up to 12 million gallons per day. And the study will be followed by final design early next fiscal year. Kind of flying through these. Another expansion that the city also recently completed was the expansion of the Jomax facility to a capacity of 3 million gallons per day. What we did as part of that project, we prepared 60% design documents in preparation for the 4.5 MGD expansion. This particular project will complete the design, making the project shovel-ready for construction in FY35 or sooner if development demands that. Okay, for the Wells project, one of our department's top priorities is to ensure that the city has a resilient groundwater supply in the event of a cap shortage, which we discussed in detail earlier. So we have a robust program for drilling new wells, as well as several projects for rehabbing existing wells. And you can see this map includes well sites throughout the city. Some of those are currently being constructed, rehabbed, or replaced. The city's utility billing system is over 20 years old, and it is in need of replacement. The new customer information system will enhance functionality and provide a stable and supported platform. It will also interface with the city's meter reading, fixed asset accounting, ERP, and e-government software. Okay, the water meter replacement program will replace meters at the end of their life cycle with advanced metering infrastructure, or AMI, compatible meters. Because the meters can be accessed remotely, this will make the city more efficient at collecting readings and tracking usage. And the new meters will also help the city with conservation by providing customers with the tools to access their individual water use data, and this will help them understand how to better track their usage and identify possible leaks in their homes and businesses. All right, and my last slide tonight is the biggest project with the longest time period, but represents a game changer for water security in Peoria. So you're all familiar with advanced water purification, which is converting reclaimed water into drinking water. We completed the initial feasibility study last year, which indicated this is at least a 10-year, more likely a 15-year project with approximately a $1 billion price tag. The next step we are calling Phase 1, and it is budgeted across the next 4 years of the CIP at $11.1 million. It will include permitting activities, pilot testing, and design. So that includes my portion of the presentation. I left plenty of time for questions, so thank you.
Can we ask a few questions about the $1 billion price tag? Okay. Just think we might want to say so. Can you explain kind of how that estimate? Because it's obviously we don't have a price tag on it, but what's the estimate and why, and throughout the process? Obviously, some of it's being developed, those types of things. So.
Yes. So Mayor Beck, when we conducted the study, it looked at the overall water system, wastewater system, what would be required not only to treat the reclaimed water at a facility, but how you would convey the water to that facility and how you would pump the purified water back into the system. So if you look at just like a project like the Beardsley expansion with a $100 million price tag, that's just a facility at one location. When you start looking at all the infrastructure to move wastewater to a facility like that, to pump water away from a facility like that, that's where that price tag grows. The study also looked at long-term operational and maintenance costs. So there was a lot that was factored into that. Advanced water purification also has what they call brine handling. So there's brine ponds. So you have to basically get rid of the salt water. So you either have to evaporate it, or they have different types of advanced type of equipment that you can actually like incinerate it, things like that. So there's a lot that goes into AWP that's more than just building a facility at one wastewater treatment plant.
So, are there advanced water treatment facilities now that you can model off of, or is this kind of in action? Because I know Phoenix is actually looking at 3, I think, or something like that, at least 2, and there's been talk about 3.
So the consultant that we hired, Carollo, they recently just finished a facility in New Mexico in Santa Fe.
Okay.
So they had a facility that was just completed. They just completed construction of that. So they had experience with. It was a smaller facility. I can't remember the exact size of it, but they had experience with that. As you mentioned, Phoenix is currently working on one, and then they've finished a couple in California. It's still new technology. It's still emerging. So it's hard to really look at other projects around the country because it's just new emerging technology, and it's a lot of it is getting the public to buy in on using that water. There's the yuck factor to that, so there's a lot that goes into the public outreach aspect of that.
So does the brine come from what material? Salt? Because you're kind of doing almost like a creation of a desal type process?
Yeah, that's correct, Mayor. So it's basically the RO process is what creates what generates the salt water. So it's the process is to convert the reclaimed water to ultra purified water.
Okay.
Mayor, if I could
heard
just,
Dave
sorry,
mention- sorry.
just to build on Chris's, and the team has done a fantastic job of studying this. I mean, the individual components of a treatment train are understood, but then how to get them to work in a mass system and move throughout the city, because you can't just take this water and put it back into the conveyance pipes that you have. So as Chris was saying, you're going to go in and put new pipelines in. You're going to reuse some of the pipelines. I heard Kevin mention in the background, in addition, it's got to contemplate PFAS treatment, other emerging contaminant treatments. So you would build those emerging contaminant treatments at the current facilities. So at like Butler down just south of here, you would then pump that water up to an AWP facility. You would treat that and then move it out. So if you remember back to the January 28th retreat, we talked a little bit about the water security strategy deployment activities, and it included not only the phase 1, how do we get to a pilot project, because one of the Arizona Department of Environmental Quality's requirements is to build a small scale plant, prove it, and then start to scale out from there. So that was one. A second big phase being led by Dave Burks was really looking at what is every step in the roadmap, not necessarily when we're going to tackle every single one of them, but do we understand it in its totality across the 10 to 15-year life cycle? And then a third portion of the project being tackled, which is being led by Kevin, is specific to how are you going to fund this? What do the mechanisms look like? And there's multiple options in there, right? You're going to have a combination of every payment option you can think of, whether it's rates and bonds, but there's also inventive ways of, do you go partner with a company who builds it and you lease it back from them? So there are people who build infrastructure for a living and lease it back to government entities like ourselves. So that is an option as well. All things are on the table. First phase, though, is proof of concept, get that design there, and then start working towards the localized emerging contaminant treatment at each of the plants, and then figure out exactly where one will go and start building incrementally there. Because yes, $1 billion is a big, scary number, but if you think about it, your CIP right now, over 10 years, is $1 billion. So if you think about it on the long cycle and you incrementally build there, it becomes a much more feasible thing to do.
So a couple points on that. So just in some of the studies we've talked about in the past, and some of the just research, just generalized research I've looked at, is the salt in kind of the desal process, because that's kind of what it is, obviously, throughout that. The early studies show that it actually gets rid of PFAS throughout that process. That it's actually taking that completely out, because you're going through this ultra purified process throughout that and the heat exchange that goes along with that as well. And the PFAS was shown that it actually came out in the brine, which is very, very important for people to understand. Very important for people to understand. I'm trying to really be animated about this, because that, with the concern of PFAS, people are like, well, it's impossible to get rid of. It's actually not. It's been proven out. There's a process that this has to go through, and it is quite expensive to do this, obviously. So that's one of the things. Those are all smaller plants, like you've talked about. I know that a lot of the council members were actually in DC last week. One of the things I've talked to our Congressman Abraham Hamadeh, who is in the West Valley here, and I'm meeting with him next Thursday on one of these topics as well, as we're hosting a West Valley business event. One of the topics that we've talked about is doing a congressional plus up around this, specifically of how, because he's really done a lot for us in the city of Peoria. I hope people understand that, because it's he's done a lot of work in the West Valley and tried to assist us, including the second helicopter. He's the one that actually went and got the money for us for that, so we appropriated that. But with this is one of the topics that he talked about. I think you guys all talked to him about that last week, whenever you met with him as well. So it's he sees the future of this. We obviously see the future of this, and hopefully we're the first of many cities that are actually looking at this technology. So thank you for doing the work. Appreciate it. Any other questions, council? Comment?
No, about your last week when we were in Washington, we did talk to Representative Hamadeh about that, but we also met with Representative Gosar, who's actually on the Natural Resources Committee, and his staff was very excited about that. And to the point where we talked about several things we were lobbying for Peoria, and we got to the water treatment facility, and it perked up. What was that? The reason why it perked up their interest in the Gosar's office is because they are feeling the pressure, of course, of the Colorado River fight, and it's gotten really ugly right now. And anything that can possibly be done, sometimes you have to spin things politically to get what you want, or take advantage of the day or the messaging of the day. They're like, that would be a great way for us to try and help you guys build that, and this is conceptually speaking, because it would show that we're trying to mitigate Colorado River losses. So it was neat. We were just trying to sell the idea, and they were like, holy crap, that is something that we could really sink our teeth into. So as you're talking to them, they're seeing that as, if we help build something like that that's going to save water and bring back 50% of the reclaimed water we can now use as tap water, hey, that's going to really minimize our dependence on this potential loss that we're going to have. So it was, one problem is going to possibly create a solution for us. So just something to think about.
Yeah, sounds like we need to acquire a whole bunch of water too. Just saying. All right. Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate it.
Thank you. All right, Mayor, we're going to move up and wrap this thing up. Will you go to the end of the department slide? So Mayor, Mayor Council, as we move into the final throes of the workshop, I just want to pause again for a moment and thank, really I want to go to the folks on the table immediately behind me. The amount of lift that falls on the budget team is immense, and they're patiently sitting behind, well-dressed, large binders ready to answer any questions, and they do an absolutely phenomenal job. And Sean showed a slide earlier that just, you notice it was a arrow, had several blocks with bodies of work, and there was 3 big blocks for May 5th, May 19th, June 2nd. But the blocks that were on the left were measured in quarters, right? And so the teams work diligently all fall on the CIP estimates, and then the CIP gets wrapped in that Thanksgiving timeline. Then everybody owes supplementals through the end of the year. They're due right at the end of the calendar year. Then the group at this table, along with Sean, Peter, and Don, have to sit through review meetings for every single team. Some departments had the privilege of coming back multiple times to meet with us. That was fun for us, not for them. And then ultimately to get to the point where we are today. And I said something to the group earlier today in a different meeting, is that what makes us successful as a group isn't when we're in the performance period, but it's in the preparation period. It's the amount of energy and effort and pain that goes into getting here. And I think we have worked hard to prepare you folks, to prepare not only the budget, but to have pre-conversations, discussions to get to this point. So I'm immensely thankful for the team, their efforts, although summarized in a 3-hour meeting, doesn't do a fraction of the justice and the praise that they deserve for the depth, quality of the budget that they delivered. So I just want to highlight that. Kevin, if you want to run through kind of the wrap for the next couple, and then we can go from there.
Right, and so kind of 2 things left on the agenda. One is the adds, deletes. If there, are items that you think we missed, you want to bring to the attention, we can certainly have a conversation about that. I think we collected a couple of them during the meeting. We've got some ones that we identified just in our own process, or things that got missed, but for the most part, we'll end up reducing more than we'll are adding with our errors. So that's always nice. So we have that, and then again, the process is really we take the proposed budget, any adjustments that you all have that we've identified, clean it up, get it back in front of you for tentative budget adoption on May 5th. That's also the same time that we're adopting the capital improvement plan. Again, you first adopt the plan. It's a 10-year document. And then with the budget, you're adopting year 1 of that plan from a financial standpoint. The public hearing occurs on May 19th relative to the truth in taxation. That's primarily about property tax. Once again, we have no change in property tax, no change in sales tax. Those rates remain the same. Absolutely.
Just so
for,
maybe I
for
turn
the-
my mic on. Just so for everybody
2
that,
decades plus.
everybody that sends us emails around this
Right.
exact same time.
Yeah, for two decades, literally our last sales tax increase was January 1, 2006, and it was a voter-approved increase in the transportation sales tax. So that's another important part of our charter, is that you cannot raise that tax without going to the voters. So it's not like this is some impulse, knee-jerk reaction that takes place. You'd have to actually go to the voters, and that's not been done in 20 years. So sales taxes, it remains flat, and property tax also has, well, it got changed once downwards in the last 2 decades, but other than that, we've been running flat on the property tax rate, and we'll continue to do so in FY27.
Maybe we could just go ahead and prep, the local papers, and then also send it to our local other officials that always send us that same email every
Yeah,
year.
Mayor, that's a good point. One of the challenges is that with the truth in taxation, we actually have to fill out a form that is written by the state legislature, and inevitably it goes to media outlets who have people who are brand new to the budget process, and they get all mixed up and turned about.
Let's just say it the right way. They get it wrong every single time.
This is true. This is true. So we'll try our best to mitigate that on the first try. So, but budget adoption then would be May 19th. Once you have the budget adopted, you can set the property taxes, and that happens on June 2nd. So with that, unless you have any other business, I think that's all we have to present.
Any questions, council? None? Thank you for all the hard work. Extremely, extremely impressed. The process was very, very clean, not just from the budget standpoint, but the presentations. We all realize, I think I said this last night, we all realize, and I really hope and pray that you all realize how much we truly appreciate staff. I think I said it last night, but I would absolutely go to war in a second for this team, and we do, right? And I hope you guys see that and understand that. You know, I said it last night. It bothers me when somebody criticizes our staff when we know we're a staff person, when we all know that that person or one of our teammates is actually doing exactly what they're supposed to do and trying to do the best job they can. All of us are going to make mistakes. None of us are perfect. I'm certainly not perfect. I'm probably the most imperfect person in this room. But the fact that we're trying to, make good decisions and actually try to look out for citizens' future, clearly, what you all have identified in trying to look out for the future, the water conversation that we've been having for literally since I've been mayor, from day one, minute one, everything has been about water infrastructure. What are we looking at for 20 years and 30 years? And I think that's people aren't going to ever see that. You know, we're going to see a new council chambers. Who has been in the council chambers? Just raise their hand. The new council chambers. Nobody's been in the new council chambers at all. Really? Oh, you guys.
It's a construction zone.
Oh, it's going to be a construction zone. Don't listen to Kevin. Just go over and look at it. Like, look in the windows. It is honestly probably, you guys have been in there. It's absolutely. It's absolutely, I know, Ron's like, don't look at it yet. Nobody's in there yet. It's absolutely incredible. And we walked through yesterday just kind of briefly, because Kevin left me in there a year and a half ago on accident with the architects, and it turned out really, really well. But the point is nobody's going to see that, what we did on that one. We talked about this. Nobody's going to see or appreciate what it looked like before 20 years ago. And our jobs, all of our jobs, including all of you, our jobs are to take care of that citizen. That our children are not going to understand what all the work we've done. But I'm telling you how much we appreciate it, and how much truly, truly, truly in our hearts that we know that how the heavy lifting and the shoveling that you guys do to actually accomplish this task. And so thank you. Because it's absolutely amazing what the PIC has turned into, how fast things are moving. Both Mike and Kevin made a comment that I think is people really want to appreciate. We're only working with developers that are going to move at the speed of Peoria, right? They have if they're not on the development task, then we're not even talking to them about selling land, right? If they're not going to be at our pace, your all's pace, we're not going to talk to them about selling land to them, because they all need to be on Peoria's schedule, not the reverse. And that is unheard of in government, not just in city government. It's unheard of in government. And you guys are all amazing. So I really, from me, from the rest of the council, truly, truly appreciate everything that you guys do. And this has been an awesome budget session. And I mean, just look at how many questions you guys had. Even from Matt, which is nope. His mic is off. So absolutely incredible. Thank you, and we are adjourned.